back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
And a liner into left. That's going to score Weatherholt. It's going to be 3-0 Cardinals. Launch toward left. Soto on the run. At the track. At the wall. It's long gone. A 2-run homer for Burleson.
And swung on and missed. What a game for the Cardinals. St. Louis strikes out 9 Mets batters. They rack up 10 hits. They score 7 times. They beat their nemesis Freddie Peralta and start this big series with a 7-0 shutout.
Chip Carey on the call. It's what it sounded like last night on Cardinals television, where the Cardinals shut out the New York Mets. A 7-0 victory where once again a Jeff Albert-led offense can't score any runs. Right?
Wow.
It's just like we remembered. And
I saw a picture of him at that, and I was like, boy, I bet he...
Do you think Stubby Clapp told him? I think Stubby Clapp was like, hey, man, does your offense still suck?
I bet he said, how are you handling the pressure of New York?
Still catching strays, just like he has been ever since he was the hitting coach in St. Louis. So they get 7 runs up on Freddie Peralta and the New York Mets. Not just Freddie Peralta, the bullpen as well. And the Cardinals take game 1 against this Mets squad. And as great as the offense looked in that one, T-Bone, the biggest story for me in that one was once again a phenomenal performance by Dustin May. He gives them 6 innings of work, 4 hits, only 1 walk with 6 strikeouts. And Dustin May has just continued to build off of 2 horrible starts to begin the season. Because when you look at it and you see his ERA this season, which is sitting at 4.2, and you're like, man, why are we acting as if Dustin May has been this sensation? Because in the first 2 starts that he made this season, he gave them 7 1/3 innings. He had a 15.9 ERA. Giving up 13 runs and only 7 strikeouts. And I'll be honest, I looked at it and be like, oh, okay, so this team still can't sign free agents. They still can't identify the right talent because what are we doing here? And that was way too premature on my part because since those 2 starts, he's had 8 quality starts in 11 games that he has started, a 2.9 ERA. He's only walked 17 batters and has 59 strikeouts. And T-Bone, you looked at it earlier. Of the starting pitchers this season, he's 31st among F4?
Yeah, 31st in F4, and I think what's most important, like you said, is, hey, boy, here we go again. Cardinals can't sign a free agent.
It's what I thought.
He's tied for 4th best in F4 among free agents that signed this offseason. The only guys that have been better than him, Dylan Cease, who's having an incredible year, Ranger Suarez, and then Michael Soroka, who's been, converted from being a bullpen arm to a starter. He's tied with Nick Martinez, who signed with the Tampa Bay Rays, which, shocker, Rays fixed a pitcher, but that wasn't the Cardinals' MO really of late, right? And it's a nice proof of concept for the Cardinals that they can suddenly look at Dustin May and point to him and go, hey, look, if you need to kind of rebound, we're looking for a rebound opportunity. Look what we were able to do with Dustin May. We've kept him healthy. We've been able to help kind of fine-tune the stuff to where you look at his numbers, as you made reference to, he's got 8 quality starts in his last 11 starts for the St. Louis Cardinals and has an ERA of 2.9 in that time frame.
Yeah.
I mean, he's pitching like a true number 1 here of late.
The most innings he's ever pitched is 132, which was last year where he split between the Dodgers and the Boston Red Sox, and all things stayed the way that they have been. I mean, this guy's on pace to pitch north of 160 innings this season, which would be massive for him. And that's my biggest thing with Dustin May. I think the easy narrative here is looking at May and saying, well, does he fit into your plan? Do you re-sign him? Do you keep him at the trade deadline? That conversation is going to persist all the way up until the trade deadline. Man, the bigger conversation is, when was the last time the Cardinals signed a true free agent pitcher specifically and said this was a success for us? Because I think a lot of people would go to Sonny Gray. I don't know if you can label that a success. Mike Leake was a disaster.
Yeah.
And they've had success from signing guys over in Korea and Japan, but I couldn't tell you the last time they signed a free agent pitcher that pitched in the major leagues the previous season and had a successful run with the Cardinals. It's been a while. That is a massive statement. One, for Chaim Bloom, because it tells me this team can now evaluate talent, which is something I have criticized them about for the last 6 or 7 years. 6, 7. And
it's dead, man.
No, it's not dead. Eli Rutherford was in the studio with JR today when we did the podcast, and he didn't tell me, but I saw it in his eyes. It's still a real thing, damn it.
Last breath, maybe, but.
Anyway, with the exception of that, it gives me trust of the coaching staff, too. Like, Dusty Blake and his team, man, they know how to work with these guys. One, to keep them healthy, and two, get the best out of them, because the strikeouts per 9 right now with Dustin May, it's sitting at about average of what he's been overall in his career. But you see signs of growth with the Dustin May. So that's the biggest thing for me. Now that I'm watching him pitch, it gives me a lot more confidence of the team that is running the Cardinals, of going out there and finding the right guy that fits their team's personality and fixing him if he needs fixing.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you there. I mean, like, you look at it, it is funny how he was the guy we would pinpoint when we talk about in the offseason, but there's going to be times where you're looking to try and find out, okay, our pitching pipeline didn't develop like we need to. We need to go to the market. And will the Cardinals ever be a team that shops at the top of it? Probably not. So that means you've got to pick and be smart with those kind of bargain bin deals, or that second tier free agent that you're trying to go out and find and sign. And they've done a great job of that with this Dustin May signing. It is the proof of concept that they were looking for, to try and say, okay, let's bring in May. We'll see if this works. If it does, we've got potentially a trade candidate. We'll potentially have a guy that fits into the long term, but it at least can show to other free agents, hey, come to us. We can become that place that can help kind of salvage your career. And that's what they've done with Dustin May. I mean, it's been a great signing for them. You couldn't have asked for anything better for what they have done. And then you can even point to it. He didn't pitch last night, but what they've done with Stanek as well, right? Yeah. Stanek was another one of these guys that was brought in on a one-year deal with high-level stuff.
Sure.
Didn't have a great year last year, and they've brought him in, got off to a rocky start, but since then they've been able to really hone in his craft, and he's been awesome for him over the last month and a half.
And I think it's important to note as well, in light of what we've talked about with this coaching staff, in light of Dustin May's inability in his career, some of this hasn't been any of his fault whatsoever, but the inability to string together season after season with big-time innings. This staff is not by any means handling him with kid gloves. You saw it last night against New York. What happens? He starts the game inducing grounders, ramps up the strikeouts, gets to a season high in pitches thrown with 101. And we did the research earlier. In 8 of his past 10 turns, he's hovered between that 91 and 97 mark. I talked yesterday openly about, okay, do you have a guy, the guy, to be able to really put that stranglehold as the number one down the stretch? He's demonstrating now, working consistently deep into games. That's not a surprise considering how many quality starts in a row he's amassed.
Well, and we've had a couple people on the Air Comfort Service text line bring up a couple of different names. John Lackey, he wasn't a free agent signing. That was a trade.
Yeah, that was a hell of a trade.
It was a great trade, but I trust him in the trades. They have a lot of success there. Kyle Gibson, I don't know if I'd call that a success. He was fine. Lance Lynn.
He was, I would say Gibson and Lynn, who you just brought up.
They were fine for the job.
They got what they wanted from him, but there was no upside in the signing.
There was no, like, holy hell, that what a signing that was. And then somebody also brought up Jordan Montgomery. That was also a trade. So trading-wise, I trust him. Trusted him with John Mozeliak. Signing-wise, it has not gone that direction.
Does it go back to, Kyle
Loesch?
That's who I was thinking of. And I couldn't remember if he was a free agent signing or if he was traded.
I think Kyle Loesch, Chris Carpenter, wasn't he a free agent signing, if I remember correctly? Mark Mulder, who I know was injured, but he was a good pitcher at the time. So, yeah, it goes back a little bit of ways when you kind of look at the team's ability to sign some free agents. So
2008, take it back.
They may have found it back there. So we got more to get into with this one as the Cardinals pick up the 7-0 victory yesterday against the Mets. They'll be back in action later on tonight. But coming up next, earlier today, the Blues announced that Steve Ott has re-signed a 2-year contract extension to remain the Thunderbirds head coach. Steve Ott is going to join us next on our YouTube channel and here on 101 ESPN.
You can now listen to 101 ESPN on demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Along with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario, BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN as we head now to our Collier and Thompson hotline to welcome in the Thunderbirds head coach, Steve Ott. As earlier today, the Blues announced that he signed a 2-year contract extension to remain the Thunderbirds head coach. So great news to open up the morning and get going the week that we find out Steve Ott remains the head coach for the St. Louis Blues minor league club. Steve, always a pleasure to get the chance to chat with you, my friend. First off, congratulations on the contract extension. How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. Thank you so much.
So, Steve, just take me through the thought process with this. I would imagine it was an easy conversation with you and your family of remaining with the Springfield Thunderbirds, but when the season ended, was there time to reflect? Was there time to just go right back to it and say, look, I want to be back with the organization doing this role?
Yeah, no, I think exactly the later of that. I was excited how, we finished out in a good playoff position, but, we had unfinished business to do. You never like losing your last game, but the run was a lot of fun for the group. The players played in a lot of meaningful games that just helped so much in their development. Personally coaching there, excellent support from the city of Springfield, our crowd, our Thunderdome that we have there, and to be a part of the Blues organization just means so much to me.
So, Steve, I know the ultimate goal, of course, is getting that head coaching opportunity in the NHL, and there were jobs opened this offseason. Was there any discussion of potentially doing some interviews for those, or was it just decided that, look, I want to keep this going with the AHL for now?
I thought exactly that. It wasn't the right time. I'm a pretty patient person in the sense of where my career path takes me, and this is the best possibility and the best structure for myself and my family at the opportunity to coach in Springfield, to develop as a head coach that I want to continue to do. And there's so many factors that go into it. You get to run your own training camp now. You get to have your own team for the whole season. The adjustments that go on within the whole year. And those are the things that I'm really looking forward to. And, and that's part of the path to get back to the NHL one day.
And Steve, now that you have a full offseason to kind of prepare for an upcoming season as a head coach, what are you hoping to accomplish this offseason and kind of getting ready for training camp?
Well, first of all, is just to be organized, to make sure that when it comes time and you want to start, the new players that you have, the new young players that are coming, you want to make sure the preparation is all done and before we even get on the ice. So to have that all structured, to have the summer to have the excitement to build off what we accomplished last year, especially with the returning players, it's just, again, a benefit to have that whole training camp, to have things running structurally how you want and how it builds from the start of it. In season, it was a little trickier. It takes weeks on end to see the certain results that you're preaching. But in training camp, to have that fresh start, to get off the gates running is a big deal.
I would imagine, Steve, that's going to be a little bit of a different evaluation process for you because if I'm not mistaken, you'll get to do the big training camp with the NHL club and see them participate with those NHL guys. But as that training camp moves along, then you'll go into the American Hockey League training camp and get your own opportunity to do so.
Yes, it's exactly what happens. And that's a really exciting time for all the players and coaches. You learn so many things from the NHL level, and you want to help our young guys and be able to be there with them as they experience that NHL training camp. And to see what details they might be missing, to see, the small things that we can help them out with so that when we do get our own AHL training camp, that we can transition these players to take that next step. So when they have that opportunity to hopefully wear that blue note one day, it's seamless.
Steve, this was something that when they made the announcement, it came to mind immediately. I feel like it's such a benefit when NHL clubs have that symmetry with their American Hockey League affiliate to where they're able to kind of have those conversations, work really well together. But there's an even bigger benefit when you have a head coach who understands what the big league club wants from their team, has similar mindsets and how they go about coaching at the AHL level. From a former NHL player, how beneficial is that for those guys to where they know that what they're learning here at the AHL is eerily similar to what they're going to get when they get to the NHL?
I think it's very important. The transition for them from our league to the next league, it's small, but there's big details that certain players are missing, and it's in some of it's role related. You can't just be a third line player and think you're going to be on the top two lines, and it's pretty common sense in the NHL. But some of these kids need to learn how much common sense goes into it, of how they need to discover a role, how they need to make an NHL roster one day, and those were great experiences that I learned along the way as a player, playing in all different situations, and then coaching. Coaching in St. Louis a long time. I know the culture of the Blues and what it means to be a Blue. And those are the things that, I love projecting to our players as they go on their own personal journey and what we do and how we do things as a Blues organization to be a winning culture. And those are things that I'm going to continue to push for Springfield.
And Steve, I wanted to ask you about one of the players that joined you for your playoff run in Justin Carbonneau. Had him for a handful of games. I know Army had said he kind of dealt with a little bit of an injury. What did you see from Carbonneau in his first steps in the AHL? And then what did you guys kind of task him with to work on this offseason?
Well, first off, he's a strong young player. He's got an excellent shot. Was able to see some of his ability come through in practice, especially. That's where it's going to translate into the games. He's a hungry player that wants to get better every single day. So, summertime wise, continuously working on his skating to continue to prove that portion of it, staying sharp with his shot that he has, a lethal weapon. And again, it's about putting in the work. This isn't something, no matter where you're drafted, first rounder or in the later rounds, or not drafted at all, it's time that you can't wish for it. You got to work for it, and that's a great summer for him to have. Is put in the extra work that he possibly missed last summer with some things that he was battling with, and again continue to develop at his own pace. And that's something where I'm looking forward to seeing what he looks like come St. Louis Blues training camp.
We're talking with Springfield Thunderbirds head coach Steve Ott, who signed a 2-year contract extension earlier today to remain the head coach within the Blues organization. Steve, throughout this season for the Thunderbirds, I feel like Blues fans have had a lot of conversations of these younger guys that wonder if can compete for those roster spots at the NHL level. So as you saw them continue their development this season, do you feel that way as well, that there's a lot of guys that are getting closer to competing and creating some internal competition for roster spots?
Yes, because our prospect pool's gotten a lot bigger in the last few years, and when you draft well and you're part of the development, you develop well, you have guys that are starting to knock on the door, and that's what you want as an organization, is to push guys not only at the top level to continue to keep their job at a high level, but also that feeder that comes underneath. It makes it for great internal competition that we have. And you can't do that without guys that are pushing from underneath. And for us to play a lot of meaningful games for our younger players throughout our playoff run, those opportunities for them are just going to give them that next level to continue to push forward.
And Steve, with Adam Yurchik, how did you see him grow from that playoff run, from Game 1 to Game 6 when he was with you guys?
Well, you could see his confidence level grow every single game. There was a third period in Wilkes-Barre where we were coming back, and by the third period, he was the best player on the ice. So there was opportunities there that I got to see some greatness out of him and what he's a lead at. And that's what's exciting. It should be very exciting for Blues fans, because he has the elite ability to be aggressive in all three zones, and plus with a special skill set. He's going to be an exciting player for years to come. But at the same time, there's things to work on. In the playoffs, I believe he played 6 games with us. He didn't have a point. And that's something that he's going to have, this growth that's going to go, and because he's going to be a point-producing defenseman. So that's how hard that next step is from junior, and that next step to the NHL. But he's on a great path for it all.
And that's not easy, Steve, for those guys that all they do is produce points in the Ontario Hockey League or wherever they play, to have that reality check to going from being a point-producing player to not getting a point when you play that many games. You have to have that reality check at some point.
You do, but he also realized how he could be effective in other areas, and that's what's exciting. He's not a one-dimensional player. He defends extremely hard. He was great on, breaking out pucks and having, being able to use his ability up the ice. So when that all translates together, he's going to be an exciting player.
Well, and I'll tell you, one of the other things that stood out to me, Steve, watching a couple of those games, man, I think it was his second game where he was on one of the power plays and he was banging the ice with his stick. He was kind of directing guys on where to go. And I'm thinking, man, this kid is 18, 19 years old and he's stepping into an AHL playoff game and he's kind of commanding the ice. That's not something you learn over time.
No, that's a lot of self-confidence for sure, especially to step in there with veteran players. And that's also testament to the veteran players. They want him to have success. And that's what we built there in Springfield is we're going to do this as a team. Doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter, your skill level, but we're doing this as a team. So the support he got to feel that it actually helps his confidence as well. So it allows him to not feel like someone's holding the foot down on his head. It's building him. And, our great veteran presence that we had, with Wagner and Dubé and McGing and Rosen, those guys were the implement to have that type of team success no matter the age.
I'm glad you mentioned Dubé, Steve, because he's a guy that I think so many Blues fans were talking about throughout that playoff run for the Thunderbirds. Watching him play this season, do you feel like that guy is just going to continue to work this offseason, but has a real chance to maybe push for a roster spot in the NHL if he signs with the Blues this offseason?
Yes, I do. He's an NHL hockey player and a great person. He was great in our dressing room for all our guys. He came in and just put his head down and worked extremely hard. It was really fun to coach him. He's got a lot of great energy. And how he is with his teammates, from young guys to old guys, is the ultimate pro. So for me, I hope he gets that second chance. He definitely deserves it in my eyes. And being able to work with him and being around him every single day, he's a character person.
Final one for you, Steve, and we really appreciate the time. Steve Ott joining us here on the Callier and Thompson hotline. I know both Blues and Thunderbirds got off to slower starts this year. You, of course, were with the Blues at the beginning of the season before you joined the Thunderbirds. As a coach, what do you really focus on in the offseason of making sure that the slow starts don't hit you guys when you begin the season?
Well, I think it's very important to have a very strong training camp so that you do, start game one and you are ready to go. Structurally, what it looks like, where the team's energy is at, the details that matter. It's the small details that we can't miss. It's stopping around the net, it's screening the goalies, it's driving the net, it's your box outs. It's all these small details have to be harped on so that when games start, we're on that advantage that we are ready to go. And I think that's, I'm sure Monty's talking about the same thing with me, same thing. We have to make sure, again, that's how, structured training camp is projected right into our start of our season. And we're looking forward to that.
Well, Steve, we're looking forward to hopefully more chats with you this upcoming season and off season, man. Congratulations to you and the family to get that contract extension. I love the fact that you're still in the Blues organization. So enjoy the off season and looking forward to seeing you at training camp this year.
Very thankful, guys. I appreciate it, all the support along the way, and continue to love to have our chats. I enjoy it.
Absolutely. Steve Ott, the Thunderbirds head coach, who signed a 2-year contract extension with us on the Callier and Thompson hotline. Really appreciate him hopping on with us today. And Tanner, just a quick reaction to that. I think this is the best case scenario for the Blues to have Steve Ott back. Like, selfishly, when the offseason began, and I was like, boy, I don't know if Steve's going to want to be back. There's going to be NHL opportunities, and a lot of teams are going to be looking at Steve Ott and saying, man, look at the success he had in the middle of the season. Like, he's got coaching experience. He's got head coaching experience. One, I think it tells you a lot about the person that is Steve Ott, to where he wants to make sure he thinks this thing through and makes the right decision. And he said, more experience is best for me. But I truly think that symmetry for an NHL club and having an AHL club with a coach who's in the same mindset of their NHL coach is critical. And the fact that you have him for, I would say, 1 year, because I don't think he makes it through those 2 years. If he has success again this year, I think teams come calling him next offseason. But if you think about it, all of these assets that the Blues have accumulated over time, man, they're all playing at the AHL level or in the NHL. So Steve Ott being here with the team for one full season, working with potentially Carbonneau and Jiricek and others, that is the perfect thing for a Blues team that needs that consistency in their minor leagues, and Steve Ott's going to provide that.
Yeah, the symmetry is the thing that you said there that's so important, because like he said in that answer, he knows what Jim Montgomery wants at the NHL level, and he's going to be able to bring that down to the American Hockey League and be able to instill that in these guys, whether it's the younger kids as they continue to grow in Carbonneau and Jurczyk, as you had made reference to, or if it is more in kind of guys that have been in the system for a couple of years now, but continuing to preach that, right, to guys like a Kaskamaki or to a guy like Zach Dean. That's what is so important within an organization. I mean, you heard the Cardinals talk about it when they made their big change with the president of baseball operations. Now, that was in the front office, but it holds the same water here with the St. Louis Blues. Organizations, the best organizations in any professional sport, have the same message from the very top all the way down to the very bottom, and that's what the Blues are trying to get back to with Steve Ott there. And I think it's great that he was able to, A, go down there and have the success that he had, and then B, that the St. Louis Blues were able to keep him and get him on a 2-year deal to stay with the Springfield Thunderbirds.
Yeah, we'll talk more Blues a little bit later on today because there's a chance that Dylan Dubé might be back with the Blues. It could be at the NHL club, so we'll react to that. Plus, we've got the prospect Don Anthony Donati joining us at 12 o'clock to talk a little bit about the Combine and if any names pop out to him for the St. Louis Blues. Plus, Chris Kerber's joining us in the 1 o'clock hour. So plenty of Blues today, but we're going to get back to the Cardinals on the other side because Nathan Church's first game in center field was last night, and boy, was it just a breath of fresh air after the struggles that Victor Scott has had. But what's the ceiling for Church? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Stanley Cup Finals are on ESPN tomorrow night. Golden Knights and Hurricanes. Pregame at 6:30. Puck drop at 7. The NHL playoffs are on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Cards extend Mets misery. Good morning. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is presented by Universal Windows Direct. Last night at Citi Field, Dustin May snapped a 7-start winless streak with ample support from Alex Ferrario. St. Louis blanking New York 7-0. Number 41 homered and drove in 3 runs, while May scattered 4 hits across 6 scoreless innings. Game 2 unfolding right after 6 o'clock. Andre Palante starts for Ali Marmol. Stanley Cup Final, Carolina staves off Vegas 5-3. The series shifts back to Raleigh on Thursday. This evening, 101 ESPN resumes its Spurs-Knicks coverage. NY still 2 victories away from that first title since 1973. This Sports Center update was powered by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Again, we appreciate Thunderbirds head coach Steve Ott joining us. If you missed any of our conversation with him, you can check it out on our podcast page later on today. Steve Ott, the Thunderbirds head coach, signing a 2-year contract extension. We'll get more into the Blues coming up in about 30 minutes with the Prospect, Don. But Cardinals with the 7-0 win last night. We already talked about Dustin May's performance. But on the offensive side of things, T-Bone, we got our first look at a different center fielder last night. Of course, Victor Scott optioned to Memphis. They activated Nathan Church. He went right into essentially Victor Scott's role, the 9-hole hitter playing center field, and he came through and had an impact. He went 3 for 4 in that game. He scored a run utilizing his speed when he got on base, and I think that was the J.J. Weatherholt single that scored he and Ivan Herrera. I forget who else was on base with him at the time, but he had an impact immediately, and it's something that the Cardinals just did not have in that 9 spot. With the exception of bunting, Victor Scott was not a threat for the team. And it does make you wonder what the ceiling looks like for a guy like Nathan Church, because at the beginning of the season, I led the whole Nathan Church is nothing more than a complimentary piece, and I believed that up until I've seen a little bit more of him to where it's like, hey, man, this guy makes contact. He's got speed. He provides gold glove defense for you in center field. That seems to be what you're lacking in this spot. Now, there is an area that needs to be fixed, and Ali Marmol talked about this on KMOX yesterday and the Post-Dispatch. This was Marmol's comment on Nathan Church. Quote, the swing rate is higher than you would want, and it's something he's aware of, and we'll get to the point where no different than when Alex Ferrario first got up here, he swung a lot, put a lot of balls in play, chased a decent amount, and you learn how to start to hone in on the strike zone, and it strengthens up a little bit. I love the comp because that's what it felt like for me with Alex Ferrario. Now, he didn't strike out a lot because, well, he made contact, but I do remember the narrative of, man, this guy is a free swinger. If Nathan Church is that and you feel like you can work with him and he's coachable the same way Alex Ferrario was, man, are we talking about an Alex Ferrario ceiling for a guy like Nathan Church? Because if so, well, there's an internal answer for your center field position because you get the defense, you get the base running, and if you can get the bat to where he's making contact, that lengthens your lineup even more, which is a massive upgrade for this Cardinals team.
Yeah, that comment from Ali kind of caught my attention because, you know, it is an interesting, not so much, in my opinion, the comp of can he be Alex Ferrario, but it's a little bit of the same profile towards Burly, where you're right. Burly, when he came up, it was like, man, that guy doesn't not swing, right? It was a rare occasion if he didn't swing. You were like, oh, he must not have seen that pitch at all, right? Like, that had to be why he didn't go after it. Because when you look at Church, his chase rate is at 45% so far this season. That is in the first percentile in Major League Baseball. That's not good at all. That's one of the worst. And you look at, though, his strikeout percentage, and even though he's chasing a ton, it's about middle of the pack, 20.6% so far this year. He doesn't hit the ball extremely hard. That's why I don't know if Burly will be the guy he ultimately ends up becoming, because his average ex-velo is in the 7th percentile. Burly sat in that 50th, 60th percentile range before really taking off in his career. But the guy that I wonder, could he be like 80% of Alec Burleson. You know, if he became kind of what 2024 was for Burly, where he was a 270 hitter, didn't get on base at a high clip, 314, slug 420, could he be in that range? You know, and that's a 5% above league average bat that you're looking at there.
Yeah.
I think that's in the range of outcomes for him. And the guy that I've comped him to that I think he could potentially be for the Cardinals is Dalton Varsho. You look at Varsho's career, not a guy that hits for a ton of average and doesn't get on base at a real high clip, but has pretty good pop at a 428 career slug. And in his career, he's been right around league average, and at times has been able to float closer towards that 10% above league average. And he plays Gold Glove defense in the outfield. And I think Church can be a Gold Glove caliber center fielder. And if maybe not Gold Glove in center, would profile as that in a corner, but be above average defensively in center field. So I think his ceiling is somewhere in that Dalton Varsho / 80% of what Alec Burleson is at the plate.
And if that's true, I mean, that's a massive success for the Cardinals.
Yep.
Let me ask you this. Can he be what Lars Nootbaar has been?
I don't think he can be Nootbaar because he doesn't get on base at a high clip.
I mean,
Nootbaar walks, and he does. Church chases a lot like Burly and doesn't draw walks. That's why I would say no.
Yeah, I mean, probably. But, man, if you could get a little bit of Lars Nootbaar, and I don't know if the on-base gets there, and you're right. I mean, that makes a massive difference. But let's say because Alec Burleson's career on-base percentage is .326, and if we think he's like 80% of that, man, if you could get like a 300 on base, maybe a slight uptick on like some of the good years, I mean, wouldn't you love to have a center fielder that's close to resembling Lars Nootbaar? Because now you keep a Nathan Church, you fill that void, and then Joshua Baez becomes that left fielder for you. And if you decide to move on from Lars Nootbaar, if you're adding a Baez bat with a close to Lars Nootbaar bat, man, you're there. Now, again, lofty expectations because it's the on-base percentage, but man, that's desperately what the Cardinals need, and it comes to the third base position, right? Like Nolan Gorman had a rough game once again last night. Bradford brought it up in the office, which he's right. Yeah, sure, he walked twice.
I thought Bradford was celebrating the two walks.
It probably is, and honestly, I don't blame you for celebrating that, Bradford.
Guys, he's 3 for his last 47. It's going to be okay.
The on-base is just going to keep going up there. But
OBP.
It's the one area that you look at and you be like, okay, you're the only spot that's not doing anything right now. And what they've found in Nathan Church for that center field position, I think they might be looking at that in about a month of like, hey, man, this is to the point where it's just as unplayable as what Victor Scott was at the center field position. The question will be, do they have a Nathan Church for third base? I don't believe they do, but Nathan Church doing this is going to put a lot of a spotlight on Nolan Gorman at third base.
No, the fact of the matter, too, guys, is that we're talking about somebody right now in Nathan Church with a grand total of 206 major league at-bats. Go back to that Burly comp. It may not be the best, but it is valid to some extent because 2023, it wasn't the most seamless transition to the bigs. We saw a lot of warts early on, right? But once you got past that threshold, that barrier early on of 300 plus, Nathan Church may not be the most blue of blue chip prospects, but he's up here now at 25. He has the chance to literally and figuratively run with that job, and you're going to see him evolve as he moves along. We've just scratched the surface, basically, from an offensive standpoint here.
Yeah, I think to your point on Gorman, he's definitely, I mean, I think he's already kind of spotlighted as this guy, and I think that pressure's only going to continue to mount. Now, I don't know that they've got, to your point, the answers internally to try and replace him. I'll be fascinated to see what happens when they first see a lefty, because I know Ollie had said yesterday to the media in that pregame scrum, hey, yeah, Church is going to slot in as the everyday center fielder. For me, might get some run against lefties. The way I read that is, okay, Church is going to be the everyday center fielder. Maybe every now and then you'll see Fermin out there in center to give him a day off. I think Fermin's going to platoon for Gorman. I wonder if that's what they try to do. I don't think they'll ever go Fermin as an everyday starter at third base because I just don't think he's an everyday player. Mm-hmm. I think he's become a perfect, and credit to him, has become a very good utility player for the St. Louis Cardinals. I wonder if they start to platoon that because I think that was going to be their plan when Urias came back. Before Urias had the setback, I think the plan was going to be Urias starts against lefties, Gorman starts against righties, and you might even actually see them lean a little bit more into Urias against righties. I'm curious if they do that with Fermin here at third base. I didn't think he was all that impressive at shortstop. He made one kind of, I don't even know how much it was really his fault, but had a play where he allowed an infield single. If he allowed that at short, what's it going to be at third base? And that's one thing that I'm going to be curious to see whenever they see their next lefty. Are they going to be willing to platoon Gorman?
Yeah, I think that's probably the next step with this one. Now, again, if Church hits and we'll talk about Jimmy Crooks in the 12 o'clock hour because that's another one. But with Nootbaar back, if Church hits and you can get Mason Wynn going a little bit more consistently, I think you can afford to have one spot that you're hoping for that power upside and plug it into the 8-hole if everyone hits around it. But at some point, you are going to get to it to where you look at it and say, we did this with Scott. We did this with Pages. I don't know how much longer we can keep doing it with Nolan Gorman. And if Jose Fermin's the contact player, and you've got bench options with Velazquez and with Brian Torres, then you're at the point where it's like, look, unfortunately, Nolan Gorman's role is just going to be solely a replacement player, which, once again, I don't think there's any disappointment with that because that's what the point of this season was for, to find out if he's a piece that you can see the future with, or has he just kind of run out of time with the Cardinals? And it might be that. I'd say probably by the time you get to July. Right? Like July, you'd hope Arias is a little bit more healthy. By July, you're getting really into the thick of things of wondering if you're a playoff team with the trade deadline approaching. I think July is probably when you look at Nolan Gorman and say, okay, is he good or is this still an unplayable player at this position?
Yeah, I think that's probably the right timeline for it is by July you look at it and go, okay, can we find a replacement on the market? Do we want to give up the capital, by the way, as well? That'll be an important question because they're not going to want to say, yeah, we're willing to trade some of our best prospects to go out and improve third base because I think what they would say is, we'll just kind of play this by ear. We'll maybe go to the market next year. Maybe they re-sign Arias and say, okay, maybe we'll bring him back to play a little bit at third base. And they could also say, you know what, we'll just kind of figure this out in the draft, right? They've got, 5 picks in the top 75, something along that range. It wouldn't shock me at all if they take like a college-level shortstop that they eventually convert to third base to be their future third baseman in this year's draft. So I think July is the perfect deadline for, okay, let's see where we're at with Gorman. If he's not hitting, let's reassess and see what our plan is from there. And if he is the one true just black hole in the lineup from an offensive perspective but plays average defense, they may just say, you know what? It's not worth giving up capital to go out there and improve this position. We'll just stick with Nolan Gorman, which I know will frustrate fans. But in a year where you're transitioning and trying to figure out who's in the core, sometimes that's the best answer for the St. Louis Cardinals.
If you're winning and it's not broke, don't fix it. And that might be where the Cardinals are at with a guy like Nolan Gorman. Tanner Henderickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to talk about the Combine and if anything's changed for the Blues prospects at this year's draft with the prospect Don, Anthony Donati. He's going to join us coming up in the 12 o'clock hour. But coming up next, you send us your questions to the Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. We'll answer them next here on 101 ESPN.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101.
314-399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line. You could jump over there and check it out, or you can also do so on the YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. Jump in the graveyard chat to send over your questions. It's 11:53. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Alongside Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Let's start with this from the 636. Would you consider moving Weatherholt to third and put Fermin, Torres, or bring Sajasi back up to put him at second? Maybe not this year, but in the future. I wouldn't. I would keep Weatherholt where he's at. I mean, he's already one of the best second basemen in baseball. Defensively, he looks great for you. I would just search outside the organization for a third baseman.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I don't think Torres is third baseman. Hadn't really played it much in his pro career. I think it's clear he's a second baseman / corner outfielder, preferably. With Fermin, again, like I said last segment, I think he's not a everyday player. I think he's become a very good major leaguer in a super utility role. Sajasi, they're not going to bring back up here, and I'm curious to see where they play him. He's only played one game in Memphis so far since being optioned, and it was at shortstop.
I think they've
which is kind of telling.
I think they've used Sajasi as a utility guy.
Yeah.
I think they've used Sajasi as a guy that can play second, can play short, can play third, can play one of the corner outfield spots.
Same.
I think they view him as what they viewed Brendan Donovan when he first joined the Cardinals, is, hey, man, bring 7 gloves to the ballpark because we don't know where you're going to play.
Yeah, I think third base, I think it's what you said. I think it's whatever it is, it's going to be from outside the organization, whether that is they trade for it at this year's deadline and or they go out to free agency and sign someone for a stopgap deal. My gut tells me they're going to try and target this at the draft this year. Yeah. I don't know who that name is, but if their board falls the way they would like it, I bet they draft don't be surprised if he's a shortstop that gets converted to be a third baseman.
And having said that, if you have it locked down up the middle when it comes to defense, Wynn and Weatherholt, you don't mess with that. Everything pivots around that tandem.
Yeah, you keep the elite defense and you say, we'll figure it out. It's the same reason you're not moving Jordan Walker. He's awesome in right field. We don't need to check.
I didn't think of that. We should have done that.
Maybe you make Reynald Rodriguez a third baseman, right? If you could play catcher, you could play any position.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
If you could play first is easy. Tell him, Skip.
I do wonder what kind of. I do wonder if he is the kind of athlete that could play third. I mean, a catcher, you got to have a good arm, right?
Yeah, big body. All right, we fixed the Cardinals' problems. From the Cottleville comb-over, with a few weeks before the NHL draft, what is your, quote, perfect Blues offseason? My perfect Blues offseason would be to trade for a bona fide number 2 center so that Dvorsky can be a really good third-line center for you and have the internal competition for second and third. Who that is, I just don't know. I'd love Matty Beniers. I think that would make sense. I don't think they're trading Matty Beniers. I'd love Shane Pinto from Ottawa. I don't think you can trade for Shane Pinto from Ottawa. Why am I blanking on the guy from Buffalo that we talked about in the past? Ryan McLeod. I like the idea of Ryan McLeod. I think he and Dvorsky would make a hell of a 2-3 punch. I don't know if you can trade for that. So that would be my ideal offseason. And if that's not available to me, this is going to sound crazy. My ideal offseason is to draft 11, 15, and 29 and trade Kyrou for the best return I can get.
Yeah, I think what you first said there is you trade for a center. I think that's ideally what you would like to do in the offseason, but welcome to you and like 20 other NHL clubs.
Everybody wants a center.
A second-line center. I think I'm with you. I think for them it is moving on from Kyrou, creating a spot that maybe it's not right away, but eventually is there for Justin Carbonneau. And it comes down to, can you upgrade the club from trading your 3 picks? And if not, then you settle on just drafting those 3 selections because it's not the worst thing in the world to make them.
From the 314, has your opinion changed at all on Dustin May's potential trade value at the deadline? He's throwing 97 with Sink. That's an arm that plays in October. It absolutely does. My opinion still has not changed on this. If this team is sitting comfortably in a wild card spot, I totally get it. I also would still investigate to see what I can get for him. And if the juice is not worth the squeeze, then yeah, I use him in the playoffs. But if I get a return that you just can't pass up on, I make the move because I think it benefits the team.
Yeah, It's changed a little, not a lot for me. And the reason I say that is because we all know who the number one arm is going to be at the deadline. It's going to be Skubal. And then it comes down to, can May continue to outpitch some of the guys that might be in this conversation with him? Will he continue to outpitch? You saw one last night, Freddie Peralta. If the Mets aren't in this thing, he's going to be dealt at the deadline because he's just a rental, so they'll move on from him. Same can be said for Robbie Ray, for example. Ray's going to be a guy that the Giants, they don't climb into it, they're going to listen on to him. Michael Wacha, Seth Lugo of the Royals. He's going to be bunched together with a bunch of those arms because I think all those arms that I just said, maybe outside of Ray if he gets right, are number 2/number 3s. Those guys are available at the deadline, but as we saw last year, teams didn't want to pay the price for starting pitching. So it just becomes, can he separate himself from that grouping of starting pitchers? If he can, yeah, he's going to carry significant value to where it becomes a very interesting conversation at the deadline. If not, then it comes down to, okay, how many buyers are you actually going to get in on him? And is it really worth the squeeze to try and make a deal happen?
Yeah, I genuinely wonder whether the perception around Major League Baseball has shifted a little more than what the Cardinals' philosophy is. As stated, you're not going to deviate from what your long-term development, what your long-term direction is. But if May continues to give you the 6 innings every time out with the plus velo, with the movement all around the zone, then perhaps you do definitely amplify your case elsewhere.
Final one, and then we'll get to the prospect Don on the other side. If you could host TMA or the Fast Lane for a week, would you do it? Which one would you rather host? Honestly, any of the opportunities would be great. I don't think the TMA audience would like me as a host. I don't think they would like my style versus what their style is. So I think the answer would probably be the Fast Lane. From my life perspective, it would make life a lot easier if I was doing the Fast Lane instead of TMA, because with hockey season, you just transition right into it rather than you got the morning and then you got hockey.
I was like, wouldn't you want to be at home with the girls?
Well, yes, absolutely.
I now understand where you're coming from.
But if I'm the Blues, you're home all day. Yeah. But yeah, if I wasn't the Blues, then yeah, mornings make the most sense for the girls. But I don't think TMA audience would like me very much.
Yeah, I mean, I would do both. I'm kind of with you. I don't know how the TMA audience would react to me. I would say Fastlane if I had to pick one of the two, just because I did the morning show thing of getting up super early and producing it. Same. When I was filled in and produced for Kerber and Smallman. Not a fan of the getting up at 4 a.m. thing. Now, I can do it, but I would rather prefer to be in the afternoon slot where your show's from 2 to 6, and I'm a night owl naturally, so it just would fit my style better.
You wouldn't be a night owl very long if you did that job. Tanner Henderickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll go back into the Cardinals conversation because Alec Burleson on another tear. How does he fit into the Cardinals' plans moving forward? But next, we'll talk Buffalo NHL Combine and if any guys have changed the outlook for the Blues' potential draft stock as the prospect Don Anthony Donati is going to join us next year on 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's BK. Join me and 101 ESPN on Thursday from 3 to 5 o'clock at Paymore in Maplewood. They're new to the St. Louis area, and Paymore is a great way for you to sell, recycle, or buy electronics. Plus, you can enter to win a brand new PS5. Paymore is now open. They've got 2 locations, one in Baldwin, another in Maplewood. And that's where you can find me from 3 to 5 o'clock on Thursday. They're located at 3212 Laclede Station Road. That's Thursday from 3 to 5 with me and 101 ESPN. Get all the details right now at 101ESPN.com.
Alongside Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN as we head back to the Kiley and Thompson hotline, fresh off of the NHL Scouting Combine out in Buffalo. He was on our show about a month ago when we were talking about the draft. I love his work. He is the Prospect Don on X, where you can follow him there. You can do mock drafts for a site that he has put together, which is just so much fun if you're into those mock drafts. But he also knows all about these combine players, and we catch up with Anthony Donati now on our Callier and Thompson hotline. Anthony, it's great to talk with you again, my friend. How was Buffalo?
It's great being back. Buffalo was a fantastic time. You get to talk to like 80 to 100 different prospects. So the day for media is actually pretty long, but it's such invaluable information. So definitely hearing some things. There's a lot of smoke in a lot of different areas. So just excited to talk about it.
I'm curious, Anthony, just because you were there, like, what's that combine like for the media perspective? Like, are you getting those opportunities to just chat with these guys one-on-one? And how open are these players after they go through this workout?
Yeah, after I think like the VO2 bike and a couple other exercises, they get thrown up to the media, and some of them are out of breath for sure. I know that's a big thing where you kind of don't get the audio that you want because sometimes the VO2 people are screaming like, come on, you got to do it. So on my Wyatt Cullen interview, it was kind of screwed up with the audio there a little bit, hearing the VO2 people. But other than that, like, it's really great for media. We get Jersey mics at lunch, so that's great. I had like 4 cups of coffee. So you get to talk to all these media people. You get to really see who these players are personality-wise very, very quickly. I know that you have to kind of tinker with your questions as soon as you meet the prospects, the ones that you haven't talked to a little bit, and kind of if they are willing to talk about certain areas, like Caleb Malholtra, every question seemed to be going back to his father in the Vancouver Canucks. So we were throwing him some lobs there with the Stanley Cup and Calder Cup and everything like that, questions about the Canucks. But I think you have to tinker with the questions a little bit based on who you're talking to.
I'm curious, with your conversations, do you think we've seen the top 4 order get solidified now with this draft? You know, there's been some conversation about what could happen at 2. Will the Sharks go with Chase Reed, or could they end up with Stenberg, or maybe McKenna falls down to him? Do you think that top 4 order in the draft has kind of been set now at this point after the Combine?
It's interesting because the only 2 picks I think are set are 1 and 3, and that's Gavin McKenna and Caleb Malholtra. So it's all dependent on what the Sharks are going to do at 2. I could definitely see a trade down if they have identified as Chase Reed as the number 1. And for me, like, Stenberg is a clear-cut superstar in the NHL if he hits his potential. I don't know why he would fall to 4. If he does fall to 4, I think that the Blackhawks would take him, but they're definitely going to at least field some offers. I think that, he might be the perfect player that they want, but at the same time, like, there's going to be a lot of interest to get Ivar Stenberg. He was a little sick. He did not, go into the Combine. He didn't do any of the workouts because he was sick. So I think that might push him down to where he can't go number 1. We did hear confirmation that the Leafs will take McKenna yesterday. So I know that's not surprising, but I think that overall, like, if Stenberg was going to go number 1, then he would have needed to have an incredible Combine. And actually, Gavin McKenna did with the VO2 bike. He was number 1. He worked out incredibly well. He had a chip on his shoulder, even though he's the number 1 pick. So I think that's solidified. Other than the top 4, the person I'm continuing to hear going up a little bit is Keaton Verhoff. And for the last month, we've heard Keaton Verhoff could slide to 7 or 8. And I actually think that was kind of a smokescreen. I think that people really, really like Keaton Verhoff. We saw Frank Saravalli today even say Keaton Verhoff could be the best Western hockey, draft eligible to come out of Western hockey in about 25 years. I mean, that was huge to hear. So I think that overall, we're kind of narrowing down who the 4 picks are going to be, maybe 5, but just not in a specific order in terms of 2 and 4.
We're talking with Anthony Donati, the prospect Don here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN, fresh off of the Combine out in Buffalo for the NHL scouting side of things. Anthony, when it comes to the Blues side of things with the pick at number 11, you know, we've seen a lot of mock drafts go down, and I've seen everywhere from Ty Lawrence to a couple of different defensemen in that area to where the Blues could be selecting. And I think for Blues fans, they really want one of those centers. If they can't have Stenberg, they want one of Vijay Bjork or Ty Lawrence. And Bjork seems probably like a pipe dream because it seems like he's skyrocketing through this draft. Ty Lawrence, is he somebody that after the Combine you feel teams are a little bit hotter on, or maybe he's somebody that may have dropped a little bit to where the Blues realistically could get him at 11?
You know, I love Tanner Lawrence. I know we were talking last time, and that's kind of you or like Alex and BK's pick for number 11, and I think that would be fantastic because Tanner Lawrence was exceptional at the interviews, and you know he was going to be. But this guy just like, he's all hockey. He's kind of like a hockey guru in a way. This guy just loves it. And I think you need that. I think that we saw some prospects that it wasn't clear, but for Tanner Lawrence, it was. You know, he wanted to go to BU this year to challenge himself. And next year, he's going to get Caleb Malhotra, which is actually going to challenge him more because they're both the top centers in this class. I do believe Vijay Bjork does have a better shot at being an elite winger rather than an elite center at the next level, even though, you know, Vigo can play center. I think that his game can translate to that. He's really tough to push off pucks. He has so much skill. You know, Victor Eklund was comparing him to Macklin Celebrini. Vijay Bjork is just an absolute star in Sweden as well. So, you know, him and Otto Stenberg and, you know, the Sweden pipeline, I think, is only getting better in the SHL when these draft eligibles are coming out there. And the thing is, you know, he had to battle for the World Championship team when they wanted him to go into the U18s. So I think that that's one thing where Vijay Bjork might fall because of his height. But if he does fall to the Blues, that's an exceptional player and one that I do believe the Blues will take. Because you have 3 first-round picks, obviously. I do think that, you know, the 15th pick is just as valuable as the 11th as well because there's a really good range there too. So when I'm looking at the Blues, I'm looking at a team that could trade into the top 5 as well if they do have a solidified player that can be a top pair defenseman, because I do think that if you're trading into the top 5, you're going with defenseman at that point. But at the same time, like, you have really great options. Even Oliver Savanto would be fantastic. 6'3" center that played out of Liga and played really well at the World Juniors. If you're looking for a center, he could be an option at 15 as well. And same with like Wyatt Cullen. Wyatt Cullen, you know, I was talking to him at the US NTDP evaluations. He was 5'5". Now he's 6'1" and could grow to 6'3" because his growth plates are still growing. So that's just a player that I think, you know, could be into that 11 range if he falls. I'm hearing a lot that he could go into that 8 to 10 range, even though, like, you know, it could be one of those Beckett-Seneca types of rises where if he went to, say, 6 or 7, I would not be surprised. But I think that the entire NHL draft fan base would be surprised. But based on what we're hearing about this kid is, you know, they want him. Like, teams want him in the top 10. So that's going to allow the Blues to get a player that might not have been there in the mock draft previously because we weren't mocking Wyatt Cullen up that high, as well as Malte Gustafsson. So now you have 2 players into the fold that could push down an Ethan Belchez, a Tanner Lawrence, or a Vijay Bjork that we weren't talking about a couple months ago.
So just as a quick follow-up, Anthony, because I remember when we had you on the last time, we talked about trying to trade for that second overall pick. And, you know, we weren't sure if it made sense for the Blues because it would cost a lot. And, you know, would San Jose even take it? Now, you mentioned them trading into the top 5. Do you think Ivar Stenberg has changed it to where, you know, the Blues really should entertain the offer if they can get it done to trade with San Jose to get that second overall pick?
I 100% agree with this because, one, I do believe that St. Louis would be the perfect fit for him because he's coming in with his brother Otto, and it's a smaller market. And based on what we've seen since the World Juniors and at the Combine, like at the World Juniors, he was a different player. He was with his boys. You know, he obviously won gold. He was very personable. At the Combine, you know, he was sick, but I think that there was a little bit of questions about it seemed like there was a lot of stress and pressure. And what we don't talk about with draft prospects and draft eligibles is they have to go through so much during their draft season then I really think that it just puts a toll on these guys. And I think Ivar just wants to be drafted, so it's not going to be something that's hindering him in the future. But what I'm seeing is, in mock drafts, we're starting to see him go lower and lower. In Cam Robinson's post-combine mock draft, he actually had Stenberg falling to 5. Wow. I don't think that the Blackhawks would pass on Stenberg because they went with Bearhoff in that specific mock draft. But it's not set in stone that this guy's going to be a top 3 pick anymore. And I think that if, the Blackhawks are very interested in accumulating as many top assets as possible. So would they consider 11, 15, and maybe another asset somewhere else for Ivar? I'm not really sure. I think that they would need to get somebody that's nearly NHL ready because they have 3 2027 firsts as well. And they're not a team that really needs the quantity, it's quality. But if he does fall to 5, which I'm not sure if that's possible, but if it is, I think the Rangers could entertain going back and going from 3, 15, and another asset because they need quantity over quality in some sort of way. And I think with the Blues is they're a deeper team than people think, especially in their rebuild and especially in their prospect pool. Like, I'm a huge fan of Jimmy Snuggerud. I think that he is going to be a absolute stud. And same with Otto Stenberg. We've not seen the best out of him. You guys have such a plethora of assets too as a Robert Thomas. Everybody wants a Robert Thomas in the league. You can get anything you want, but I think you should keep him for at least 3 to 4 more years. So when you get a guy like Otto Stenberg, Ivar Stenberg, you have centers that will allow him to elevate his game too because they're so dominant. That's one of the things with wingers. Sometimes we throw them in there and they don't have the best support team around them, and they don't put up the stellar numbers that we expect. And it's not because they're not doing it. They just don't have the opportunity. And if you have Robert Thomas on a line with Ivar Stenberg and he could play in the NHL next year, I think that would be an 80, 90, or 70, 80, 90 point guy in two years. So 3-4 years down the road, he can certainly hit 100 points. That's the thing about Ivar. Like, yes, he's 5'11". It's going to push him down, but this guy has extreme talent. He was battling for the number 1 spot. It's just about team fit. And then the Malhotra thing. I think the Malhotra thing is a weird scenario because we've heard the entire year that the Canucks would be interested in Malhotra if they fell to 3, but then the Sharks got 2. So it changed the conversation around the Sharks taking Stenberg, but the Canucks already have fallen in love with Malhotra. And I think, it was a minus 900 on the first betting odds for Caleb Malhotra. It's absurd. So now it kind of changes the entire conversation. And that's the thing that we're talking about with the top scouts and the people in the space. Ivar's going to probably fall. And I think that if the Blues have fallen in love with him and he wants to play in one of those smaller markets, because I think that would help him, the Blues are the perfect fit for that. So I think it's a sneaky dark horse. And if the Blues do trade up, I would not be surprised for Ivar, but it's going to just take a lot.
Anthony, I'm curious. You had mentioned earlier that if the Blues can't trade up and they do end up making their 2 selections at 11 and 15, they could still end up with a good player at 15. And I know we've talked about how deep this draft is, especially the last time that we had you on. Do you think in that 5 through 16 range that there's been, after talking at the Combine, some separation amongst that group, that maybe some tiers have started to develop?
Yes, but I will say this. In the 2025 draft, Jackson Smith was drafted 14th overall to the Columbus Blue Jackets. They had him 4th on their list. So it's one of those things where in the draft pundits and media, there is gaps. But in terms of some people's draft lists, you could get your guy that's in the top 5 or top 6 at pick 11. Maybe not at pick 15, but you could certainly get a top 10 guy at 15 on your specific list because it's so close and it's draft position based in this specific class. It kind of reminds me, everybody was talking, I've talked about the 2024 class and the 2008 class, but also in that 2023 class, everyone got who they wanted. So there was no trade-offs because it was position based. Every team found like they had a fall to them. And I think in this draft class, we're going to see the same in the top 16 and the top 20, that a team is going to get a faller, because Xavier Villeneuve on some people's lists is top 10, even top 6. So you will have an opportunity to get him at pick 15, in my opinion. I think it's a 75% chance he falls there. And if the Blues have him as top 5 on their list and they say that after the draft, I would not be surprised. The same with like Ryan Lynn. the size matters in terms of the prospects in this class because it's so close. You have a lot. You're going to have a run on these 6'3", 6'4" power forwards that come from like Ethan Belches, Oscar Hemming, Dagenais, Oliver Savanto, and then it's going to push down the 5'11", 5'10", even 5'9" with Vigo Bjork guys. But we're seeing what Logan Stankoven's doing in the Stanley Cup final and even the playoffs. I mean, if you play bigger than you are, you deserve to be talked about bigger than you are. Like Vigo Bjork does not play like he's 5'9".
Yeah.
So in terms of the gaps there, I think that there's a gap from, McKenna, and then there's a gap, in my opinion, or McKenna and Stenberg are very, very close. And then it's Malhotra and the defenseman, the top 4. And then there's another gap. So I think there's 3 gaps in the top 10. But after that, or top 11 or top 12, because Ethan Belches is definitely in that range, and same with Tynan Lawrence. So there are a couple of tiers, but at the same time, from like 8 to 16, 17, I think you're getting a very similar player, unless Vigo Bjork is still there, because I think he has superstar potential if he hits. So I think that the gaps are pretty close. It's going to be size and team fit dependent.
Final one for you, Anthony. And Anthony Donati, the prospect, Don, is with us here on BK and Ferrario. Ethan Belches is somebody I've heard a lot about, and it's one guy that I'm just infatuated with because of his size. He's 6'3", like 200-something pounds, and he's 19 years old. I've heard from some people that, Belches could be kind of what Porter Martone has been for the Philadelphia Flyers, to where, like, look, this kid is big. He's got the ability to score in front of the net. He does have the opportunity to be one of those star players if he develops correctly.
Yeah, I absolutely love Ethan Belches. Every time I talk to him, he's just so personable. He is great with media. He's humble. He is a big 6'5" power forward that just wrecks the game. And if you put him in front of the net, I mean, his hands, his skill, his ability to move, I mean, he has everything, I think. In terms of the Porter Martone comp, I think that Porter Martone had more raw skill as well as the playmaking. What Ethan Belches does better than Porter Martone is he uses his body more. He's more physical, and he plays with more of a meanness. And the thing about Ethan Belches is he could be had at 11. He's talking a lot about the Islanders at 13. I think that's kind of a range where we're seeing now, because obviously he's good friends with Matthew Schaefer, so that's why he added that note in there. But I do think that when we see Ethan Belches, he could go from anywhere from 8 to 13. And I think that if he's at 11, the Blues are going to take him, because you can't 6'5" power forwards that have that much skill and a hockey IQ do not grow on trees. So I think that if he is there, you have to just select him because of the upside he brings. And he has a high floor too. Like, he might not be this like first line power forward that looks like a Matthew Tkachuk, but his upside could do that in terms of where we've seen his game grow. And he's gotten better every single year, especially playing with a guy like William Greentree, who's a smarter player. So when you add those players with higher hockey IQs, they're going to be able to use Ethan Belches too, because he fills the lane well. He is always finding open space, and he uses his body to win puck battles. So I would love Ethan Belches. I see him in a similar tier as a Porter Martone, but I think Porter Martone was better at this time. I think the 2025 draft in the top 7 was really, really good forward-wise. So in terms of him, I think that if he's at 11, you have to take him even over a guy like Tynan Lawrence, because the potential is offensively is just immense.
Anthony, man, I could sit here and talk draft with you all day. I truly love the information that you provide. We'll be getting you on again before the draft, maybe even the night of the draft. I'm sure you'll be busy, but we'll find a way to do so, man. Thank you so much, and we'll talk again real soon, buddy.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
There you go. Anthony Donati, the prospect, Don, with us here on the Calgary and Thompson hotline. So we went long. We'll probably need to double here to get to the Cardinals on the other side, but I did just want to do a quick react with you, T-Bone, because I've once again changed my mind.
Shocker.
I know, right? I mean, like, he called Ivar Stenberg a superstar. Isn't that what we've been talking about for the Blues? Isn't that what we've been discussing of, like, they need to go out there and find that guy? You got your chance, man. You're going to have to pay the price. It's going to cost you.
Well, here's my question. To that cost point, are you willing to give up maybe something that you're not expecting?
This is the part that it's hard. Like, I can't give up Adam Jiricek.
Okay, but he might be in this conversation. Like, if you're talking about moving up to 2, for example, to get him, I mean, the Sharks may say, it's been clear they're reporting that they want
defense.
They want defense. And we've said, well, maybe Parayko's the guy. Well, maybe they say we want the younger version of Parayko.
They do.
We want Juracek.
They would.
So they say 11-15 and Juracek. Let's do it.
And then I think I'd have to say no. Because
then I don't think you're fully committed to your superstar you want.
You're right. But, you need it, but going after it that crazy doesn't benefit you long term.
See, I think it does. And the reason I would say I would be willing to pull the trigger, because A, you've been missing a superstar, and especially a forward superstar. Haven't had that since Vladdy. And then second is, you know what? I'll figure out what I'm going to do with that right side defense, right? I'll figure it out. This is the kind of guy that I get him, I get the same long-term control that I would have had with Juracek, and that's what makes it worth it.
Could you find a way to get him, and I'm only generally asking because we don't know the answer to this, could you find a way to sweeten the pot to where it's all 3 picks, it's Kyrou, and maybe it's Lindstein, something like that? Juracek is the part, because we could be talking about any of the forward combinations. We could be talking Justin Carbonneau. We could be talking, I know people aren't going to agree with this, we could be talking Jake Neighbors. The hard part is when you get to Juracek, because of what that upside is, I think you potentially have a star on the defensive side, and that's something that you also truly need. Now, does Juracek negate giving up one of those first-round picks? And you can keep one of those 11 or 15 to get the defenseman in that draft to replace what you're doing. This is the part that I do think you have to kind of get creative with, and it's what Doug has said. You got to hope the other sides are going to agree to it, and that's what we don't know with San Jose. You do need that superstar, though. Now, what he said there at the end with Belchez, this is another guy that I do think provides upside for you. Can you get him and a center at 11 and 15? It's the part that you have to weigh. But, man, hearing him talk about Ivar Stenberg that way, it's one of those things that if he drops to 5, you absolutely pay the price to get to that one. And I think that's not going to cost the same as number 2. But, man, if San Jose is really thinking about it, it's hard to pass up on that budding superstar that we've been talking so much about.
Yeah, I just don't think the Blues will do what's necessary to make it happen. Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know that they view Stenberg that way. They may not.
Maybe
if they
not.
don't, then you don't pull that trade. But if they view it that way, pick which prospect you want, right? I'm giving you 11-15. I'll give you whatever prospect you want. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
And if that means you're giving up Juracek, that means you're giving up Juracek. And this is where I think the Blues would say, we're good. And if I'm San Jose, I would say there's no sweeteners. You either ish or get off the pot.
Yeah.
And that means you're throwing Juracek in this deal and we make this happen, or you can hang up the phone and go figure out what you're going to do from there.
Yeah, I don't think I would do it with Juracek, so you're right. I'm not all in on it, but I'm also all in on Adam Juracek from everything that we've heard, which I think is a big thing for the Blues. If you missed our conversation with the prospect, Don, you can check it out up on our podcast page a little bit later on today. The podcast is brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Center, and the 101 ESPN app brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. The podcast is brought to you by Schaefer Door Company. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into the junk drawer. We'll double here because next, how does Alec Burleson fit into the Cardinals' plans moving forward? We'll talk about that, and Jimmy Crooks starting to get a little worried about next here on 101 ESPN.
Need more Blues talk? Check out the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Donnie Fandango, and Jeremy Rutherford on 101 ESPN. The guys bring you the latest news and notes on your St. Louis Blues. Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care, the HVAC company that has been making people comfortable since 1926. And when it comes to your HVAC system, maybe you got an older one and you just need to find a way to get you through this upcoming summer. Or maybe you got a brand new one and you're thinking, boy, I need to make sure this thing lasts for as long as it possibly can. That's where Classic Air Care comes into play. 5-star service, knowledge of 30-plus years from technicians that are doing this, incredible customer service that you're getting. All of that takes care of you and your family with your HVAC system. You can check out their maintenance agreement, which is something that benefits you year-round. You could check out the financing options if you're looking to purchase a new one. Plus, they do electrical. Everything is for you over at Classic Air Care. But don't just believe me. Check out the thousands of 5-star reviews that they have, like this one from Kim. Beyond happy with my experience from Classic Air. Meeting with Nick about a new furnace and AC units to Ian and Vontae installing them. All has been fantastic and an informative experience. They were professional. I understood what was completed. I have found my new HVAC professionals from here on out. Thank you so much. Call them today. Schedule online. Just do me a favor. Tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
May mows down Mets. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Dustin May entered Tuesday's series opener against New York in the midst of a 7-start winless streak. Quickly, though, number 3 found his groove at Citi Field. May striking out 6 across 6 spotless innings as St. Louis blanked its opponent 7-0. Offensively, Alec Burleson belting his 9th homer. DH Ivan Herrera also reaching base base 5 times. Game 2 kicks off tonight at 6:10. Roughly 90 minutes later, Hoops will grab that Big Apple spotlight. Knicks Spurs airing on 101 ESPN. San Antonio could even said series. Carolina has accomplished as much NHL-wise after edging Vegas 5-3. This Sports Center update was supplied by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Launch toward left. Soto on the run. At the track. At the wall. It's long gone. A 2-run homer for Burleson. And that one hammered down the right field line. That's going to be fair. That's going to score Herrera. Burleson on his way to second. He'll stop there. Back-to-back doubles. It's 7-0 in the 7th.
So Alec Burleson has just been on another tear. He has been one of the best hitters against right-handed pitching this season. Along with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. So since the middle of May, Burleson has got a .333 batting average, a .396 on-base percentage, a .519 slug, and a .915 OPS. Overall on the season, he's got the 12th best in Major League Baseball, WRC plus at 160. Or no, WRC plus is the best WRC. 162.
Here, I got you. Burly against right-handed pitching this year. 326 average, 403 on base, 552 slug, 955 OPS. That's a 162 WRC plus. Against right-handed pitching, that is 12th best in Major League Baseball.
That's what I was trying to say.
Him against lefties.
He's not good against lefties, but you know what? I don't really care about that as much because when you hit right-handed pitching, you're dominating them. And, you got the guys that can go against lefties. You need more from them. But Alec Burleson is truly another one of those middle-of-the-order bats that you need. And it does beg the question because Burleson is 27 years old, and you look at where this Cardinals team is at, and you say, does he fit into the Cardinals' plans moving forward? And I do feel like we were going to have a lot of these questions for a lot of players because of this rebuild that they're in the midst of, right? With Dustin May, with Riley O'Brien, with Nolan Gorman, and you do have to discuss Alec Burleson. And for me, T-Bone, that guy fits your timeline because if Jordan Walker is what he has been, if J.J. Weatherholt is what he has been, and your pitching pipeline continues to develop, I think we can all agree that it's viewed as a 3-year, like you'd hope by year 3 of this rebuild, you're ready to start being competitive. The draft picks, the pitching prospects have started to really develop and get to the major league level. You've got your offense. You feel like you're ready to start. Man, that guy's 29 years old, and if that bat still plays to this level to where it's one of the best in Major League Baseball against right-handed pitching, that's a perfect complementary piece that you win with. He's not the centerpiece, but you got the centerpieces with Jordan Walker and Weatherholt and potentially Baez or a Reynel Rodriguez. I think Burleson fits into your timeline perfectly because if you're winning when you expect to, he's right in that prime age that you wanted to.
Yeah, see, I find him fascinating because he's a hell of a baseball player. I mean, the way he's been able to just kind of take off in his career from 2023 till now, you've just been able to see how he grows, and he's only gotten better as he's gotten more playing time. But what makes him so interesting is, look, maybe this is year 1 of them being in a, maybe not championship window, but a playoff window, right, where they constantly make the playoffs. They kind of start their new run like they had under the Mo regime. But if it's not, and this is kind of the one-off, and then maybe next year they take a step back and they maybe miss the playoffs, and 3 years is more of what the timeline is for when they hope to be back in that World Series contention, 3 to 5 year window. Well, Burley's a free agent in 3 years. And he plays the non-premium position of first base. How is he going to be valued as they start to look at this in the long term? And as you mentioned, he's 27. His first free agency year is going to be at the age of 30. Mm-hmm. And we've seen how teams kind of view it once you turn 30 to get into those free agency years. That's when they start to go, okay, that age decline is getting ready to come. Yeah. And I will find it fascinating to see how he will kind of fit into the timeline for the Cardinals, because if they look at this and say, hey, it's not a premier position, they could potentially look to trade Alec Burleson at some point and say, let's see if we can get a haul for a guy that's a really good hitter against right-handed pitching. I don't think they're going to do that. I think you just play out the arbitration process with him, and I don't think he ever out-expenses himself from the St. Louis Cardinals, because I've said this before on this show, I think he's Josh Naylor. And if you look at Josh Naylor, he's been a very good major leaguer at first base at that position.
Super solid.
He signed a 5-year, $92 million deal, I think it was, this past offseason. if you had to keep Burly on that when he goes to free agency, that's not going to break the bank for the St. Louis Cardinals.
That's the part for me. Like, he's not elite defensively for you at first base. He's not hitting 30, 40 home runs in a season. He's just a really, really good player. And that, to me, is not a player that's going to cost you the world to keep within your organization. And Burly might love it in St. Louis. And when a team's ready to compete after you've gone through the down years, maybe you're willing to stick around for a little bit less. Who knows what the situation with baseball looks like when you get to that point. But, you know, I made the comp in the office, and I understand he plays a more premier position. But Brendan Donovan was 29 going on 30 when they traded him this offseason. And they said, man, the timeline just doesn't really mesh, and we could get something really good in return. If the Cardinals fast forward where they are now 2 years later, and Brendan Donovan was in the same position, 29, and you were wondering where he fit in, and the Cardinals aren't moving that guy. They're saying, no, he's a part of this. He's playing third base for us, and we think we can win with that. Again, I know it's not the same position, but the bat is really good. And with a Walker, with a Weatherholt, with a Herrera, depending on what Baez and Rodriguez look like for your team, that's another accent piece that you truly need to be competitive. And at 29 going on 30, if he's not going to cost you an arm and a leg, man, I'll take the chance of that decline that comes if I can get 2-3 really great years out of Alec Burleson when I'm in my winning window.
Yeah, and if they feel like they're not getting towards the end of the rebuild,
right,
if it does end up taking a step back for some reason.
If Walker doesn't continue to develop, if Weatherholt takes a step back.
And I think it's more of just the team result than it is individual players. But like you said, those guys would drive that. If they end up kind of falling back into it in 2 years, we'll be having a conversation about trading Alec Burleson. You know, if they kind of fall out of it this year, there might be a conversation about that because he would carry some true value potentially on the market with control. But I think their plan right now, the way they view it, is Burley's going to be a part of this when they get into that next winning window because he's at a position that doesn't cost a ton. They should be able to at least, I would think, be able to kind of afford his services. And I don't know that they've got an internal option over there at first base that they're looking at. He is playing first base, but I think they view him more as a DH bench bat kind of player. Because it's tough to say, all right, Blaze, now come up and take Burley's job and be 30% above league average and hitting the 3 spot for us. That's a really tough ask for a guy that's in the minor leagues right now. Burley's just a really good player that all teams have to have, and he's a contact-oriented guy. He's got a little bit of pop in his game, and he hits for a high average, which doesn't happen a lot in today's game. He's the perfect 3 or 5 hole hitter for a team whenever the Cardinals think whatever they envision their next quote-unquote championship contender looking like.
Yeah, I don't know if there's that much more to prove in the way of, establishing yourself particularly against right-handed pitching, because provided that he can basically avoid the gaps that we saw. Think about 24, for example. It was September, if I'm not mistaken. Totally, the production bottomed out. Last July was difficult. But basically, ever since that point, you've seen the production ramp up that much more. From April this season, 265. The OPS was nearing 800. It's improved steadily from there. We're talking about somebody, guys, who is absolutely dangerous at the moment. He's almost hitting 400 this month, and he's consistently driving the baseball. We mentioned yesterday, or raised the possibility, how many 20 home run hitters exist on this year's team? Frankly, I don't care if Burly actually surpasses that mark, because this is somebody who's projected for 100-plus ribbies, and he's going to flat-out hit, period. Whether it's between 285 and 290, you guarantee that from him. You lock it in, basically, from this point moving forward.
Yeah, so I think he plays into it, and it's just because it's the right timeline with the Cardinals. Somebody asked the question that if the Cardinals would have known what Walker and Burleson and Weatherholt would have been this season, do you think they would have kept Donovan? No, I don't, because I think they looked at it as, look, this is the start of it, and even if these guys are great, we need to stock our pipeline. And as great as Brendan Donovan is, in 3 years, he's going to be 32. 3 years with Burleson, he's going to be 29 going on 30. It's a 2-year difference, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in baseball, once you cross that 30-year-old threshold, things start to be viewed a little bit differently. So, no, I think they would have done this the same way they're doing it right now, and it's paying off with the guys that they have.
I think it would have been a tougher conversation, but
Agreed.
I think I agree with you, because I think they definitely needed to continue to restock that pipeline and really add another high upside arm, which they did in Senja. But I think it would have been a hell of a lot tougher if I would have said, hey, Heim, Walker's going to put together an MVP caliber year. Burley's going to be about 30% above league average. Herrera's going to repeat what he did last year. Oh, by the way, Weatherholt, your rookie's going to be like rookie of the year. I would have looked at that and said, Well, boy, that doesn't sound like we're rebuilding.
And
That probably sounds like we got a good lineup.
And by the way, Nolan Gorman is not good, and you're going to move on from him at the end of the season. They would have been like, well, there's your third baseman. But, man, again, you need to stock that pipeline. And if you didn't with Senja, sure, we'd be excited, but you just don't have that many outs as much as you had before. Can we talk about another guy who's struggled?
Yeah, who's that? Gorman? Yeah, I know.
No, not Gorman.
It's rough.
Not Gorman.
We've been there.
We've already talked about that. And remember, Bradford was excited about his 2 walks that he got.
Right.
Jimmy Crooks.
Bradford, got anything on him?
You got anything on him?
Excited?
Has he looked good behind the plate with his framing?
On Jimmy Crooks?
Yeah.
Didn't he allow
I'm
him
not.
to pitch
All right,
yesterday?
you know what? I will. Hey, I'll run with this because I was curious about a week or so ago, guys. A week or so ago, when we were talking about the conversation hovering around Jimmy Crooks and coming up and getting those opportunities at the major league level. And yes, we loved the production down in Memphis. We loved the pop, right?
Yeah, it was the minor leagues, but yeah.
By the same token,
It's AAA.
why is it that Joshua Baez, he of the countless strikeouts to go along with the power production for the Redbirds, we seem to operate on this premise that you can't dare recall him. You can't promote him, even though he too is on the 40-man roster. But Jimmy Crooks, despite having had a plethora
getting lost. We're talking about Jimmy Crooks.
Strikeouts. Yes, we are. Jimmy Crooks was this guy at the AAA level. He was this guy at Springfield as well. We're pretending as if, we didn't see the same thing last year in 2025 and this year small sample size too. This guy's been notorious, unfortunately, for fanning in equal measure with bringing the power production. I just don't view this as a shocker through a couple of weeks. I don't.
I don't know how we got to Baez there, but I like where you're going with this.
Everything you said, I didn't know where you were going. I thought you were going to say we should call Baez. It was like Bradford. He's not a catcher.
He wasn't paying attention like we weren't paying attention.
Slight difference.
See what you're saying there, but look, Crooks it's only 18 at bats.
Still early.
But the batting average is very low. He's striking out 35% of the time, which is not good. And last season, we saw it in a small sample size, and he just didn't provide that pop. One, I see the connection with Baez because the same reason people are saying get Baez up here because he's hitting 18 home runs. Crooks was showcasing power, and it hasn't translated to the major league level. But I'm not ready to sit here and act as if get rid of Jimmy Crooks and send him back down. I think a small sample size, especially when you're playing the catcher position, there's a lot more that goes into it than just getting your bat in there. You got to understand the pitchers. You got to know what they want to work with, and you got to know how to work well as the defensive side of things. And you got the pressure of just coming up and trying to stay at the major league level. 18 at-bats with only, 5-6 starts behind the plate. I want to see more of it for Jimmy Crooks because I think it will build as it goes on.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's early. Now, early on, it looks a lot like it did last year. And to Bradford's point, he's always been known as a strikeout guy down in the minor leagues. Now, he did show improved signs of that prior to the call. That's why they decided to call him up.
And he was drawing walks.
Yeah, exactly. So it's early. He looks a little overpowered. It's still worth throwing him out there because it's still a rebuild. Right, he fits into this rebuild conversation of we're going to give guys opportunities and we're going to see if they can prove that they belong in the core. It's not like it's a make or break year for Crooks like it was for Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman coming into the year, but it is all right, you're up here. My guess is they will not send him down unless things really go poorly up here, and they're going to say, all right, you're up here. You're the starting catcher that catches 2 out of 3 if it's right-handed pitchers. Herrera gets the other one. Let's see what you look like. Let's see if you're able to make these adjustments at home plate as a hitter. And it's not like there's a lot of pressure that he needs to be like a cleanup hitter, right? He's hitting, 7th in the lineup, I think it was last night.
Yeah.
So there's not a ton of pressure on him there. But let's see how you're able to adjust to Major League life. And then they can go from there when it comes to deciding their catching depth in the offseason.
You have to stick to at least 2 out of every 3. Because otherwise, I don't think you get an accurate portrayal of what he could do. You're not building a rhythm,
Don't
right?
necessarily have to because they can DH him on one day.
Fair.
The reason I say that is if like a lefty's on the mound, they can go to Pajes if they want to kind of play matchups. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, he has to be in the lineup 2 out of 3. They're going to get him plenty of playing time. I think they're going to be able to make the proper judgment on his skills.
I think once again, you're just going to see what it looks like at the end of the season, and then you make your decisions there. At least that one, you know where an internal replacement might be with Rodriguez if he remains at the catcher position. But for now, keep Crooks in that spot because if Crooks isn't there, I'm going to have Pajes doing the exact same thing. So I think it's fine, and I'm not worried about this even after 18 at-bats for it looking a little porous. With Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15 minutes, is there a team that you believe could unseat the Cardinals in this wild card race? We'll get to that. Kerbs is going to join us at 1:15, but coming up next, we dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
Next Friday, June 19th, the morning after, along with our radio friends from all 5 Hubbard stations, are set to team up to fill a truck for Operation Food Search. Stop by the station next Friday morning because TMA will be heading downstairs to broadcast live out front in our parking lot from 7 to 11 a.m., collecting canned goods and non-perishable food items. We'll be handing out 101 stickers, donuts from Donut Drive-In while supplies last, and everyone who stops by to donate will have a chance to enter to win a $500 grand prize. Now is a critical time to support as Summers see a big drop in food donations, so get your food donations ready and bring them by next Friday from 7 to 11 a.m. with the morning after and 101 ESPN out in front of Hubbard St. Louis. That's 11647 Olive Boulevard in Creve Coeur. Get all the details at 101ESPN.com with support from Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. Grab the new Famous Wrap for only $2.99 at Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. And the Happy Roof Company, building trust, helping families, giving back. Visit thehappyroof.com.
This, it's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer is presented by Bet365. With Bet365 early payout, you win even if they lose. Get paid out instantly when your team goes up big, even if they blow the lead later. Bet365. Winning is everything.
Let's dive right in. I've got a question parenting-wise, but T-Bone, I still want your opinion on this.
Yeah,
I want your opinion on this.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember swim lessons or learning to swim? Bradford, do you remember teaching kids how to swim?
That was definitely more of a wife thing.
Okay.
I remember taking
Like,
swim
did you
lessons.
take swim lessons?
I took swim lessons, but I also took them more at a older age, right?
Yeah.
Because originally I was more afraid of the water. So I didn't start taking lessons till I was probably like 10.
Yeah. So
I can swim pretty well now.
So we've got a pool, an above-ground pool in our backyard. And I mean, like, our girls have swam in it, but they wear their life jackets, and we've been working with them over time. Adelaide, our oldest, she took swim lessons when she was probably like 1 year old, and then took it the next year, and then it was a lot of money, and so we just didn't have the money for it. So we were like, we'll work with her at home. Emma, our middle, never took swim lessons. We just kind of worked with her at home. And then now Olivia, our youngest, this is like her second year being in the pool to where we're holding her. So we were in it yesterday. And you know, like, when you take swim lessons, they want you to teach your kid what it feels like to go under. Like, when you send them to swim, the first thing they do is they dunk your kid.
Yeah.
And like, as a parent, I'll never forget, I was holding my 1 year old, and they're like, okay, put her underwater. And I'm like, I'm not going to abuse my child. And they're like, no, stick her under so she's got to feel. And so, like, you do it, and it's like, oh, God, that was awful. So we're in the pool yesterday, and our oldest two, like, they can swim. They got their life jackets. Our oldest knows how to kind of, like, float and keep her head above water. But I was like, okay, well, we need to try it with our youngest. This is, like, the first time we've actually been in there and, like, not a toddler. So I told Katie, I'm like, I'm just going to dunk her. And Katie's like, I don't know, she's not going to like it. So I'm like, it's fine. I'm going to dunk her. And so, like, what you're supposed to do is blow on their face so they go, and then you put them under so they're holding their breath. Mm-hmm. So I'm holding her. She already didn't want to be in it because it was cold as hell. And I'm holding her, and I'm like, okay, baby, we're going to go under. And I, 1, 2, and I blew on her face. She opened her mouth, and I, like, dunked her. And she came up, just water came out of her mouth. The look on her face was, did you just bleep and do that to me? She reached for Katie and refused to let me hold her again in that pool.
Sounds about right.
So now my youngest has trust issues.
Yeah.
Now my youngest has trust issues.
It's what has to happen, though, to learn how to swim, right? We can regrow that trust issue.
That's what I said.
We can make up that.
It was so funny, though, because when I reached for it, I said, baby, can Daddy hold you? And she, and I'm like, I don't blame you on that one.
Now, I don't know how common it is for, like, that to suddenly scare kids away, but that was basically what happened to where I said, my mom has told me this, of when I was little, they did the same thing, right? Dunk me under the water, and I breathed in or opened my mouth and swallowed a bunch of water, and hated to where I, like, refused to go to a pool for a while. And that's why it took so long for my parents to eventually say, you're old enough, you need to learn how to swim.
Yeah.
My grandpa never learned how to swim. Yeah. He didn't know how to swim. He always was terrified to get in the water.
I did swim lessons when I was younger, and then it was just like, you know, I had to be in the pool when I was younger, like, all the time. And the girls love water, but it's like, we want to make sure, because it's an above ground pool, because they know how to get outside, we want to make sure they know how to swim in case a, you know, terrible thing happens and they get into the pool without us knowing. So it's like, we're working with them, and we're doing lessons now with Emma. We'll do it with Olivia when she gets to that age. But I felt like the worst dad in the world when you dunk the child and she looks at you like, what the hell did you just do to me?
It's just teaching.
Yeah.
The good news, it'll be fleeting. Yeah. It'll be fleeting. So
she'll get over it.
Is your pool big enough to do kind of like swim lessons? I would think it'd be. I mean, I don't know how big it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, just, you know, like,
because I feel like that's one of those where, like, you would, like, kick once or twice and boom, you're at the end of the pool.
Oh no, like, it's okay. Like, for me, like, you go under and push once, you're probably at the other side. But for them, I mean, Adelaide, it takes her a good bit to kind of, like, kick her feet and swim to the other side. And the good part with it is, like, Adelaide's probably, she's taller than, like, most kids at her age. So, like, the water comes up to her neck. So she stands, she could be above it. The other two are the ones that we're trying to make sure that they know how to kind of handle that one. So swim lesson, Ferrario over here. I dunked my child and felt awful. But You got to get through it. Tanner Henderickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll catch up with Voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. But coming up next, is there a team that could unseat the Cardinals in this wild card race? The answer might surprise you. We'll touch on that next here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's Kerry Davis, and you can join me and 101 ESPN this Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Paymore in Baldwin. New to the St. Louis area, Paymore is a great way to sell, recycle, and buy electronics. Plus, enter to win a brand new PS5. Paymore is now open with 2 locations in Baldwin and Maplewood. You can check out the Baldwin location located at 15367 Manchester Road this Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. with me, CD, and 101 ESPN. Get all the details at 101ESPN.com.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. It's 1:05. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Chris Kerber is going to join us in about 15 minutes. But now, the Cardinals, with the victory against the New York Mets, continue to pad their lead in the wild card race as they now sit 3 games ahead of the teams that are outside of the wild card conversation. So the wild card standings, as it stands today, the Cardinals, then the Phillies. They're 1.5 games up on the Phillies. They're 3 games up on the Arizona Diamondbacks, as well as the Padres and the Nationals. And then beyond that, you've got the Pittsburgh Pirates, Chicago Cubs, Cincinnati Reds, Marlins, and then we're talking 8 games out for the New York Mets, who the Cardinals are playing right now. It's a weird thing to say because of the intentions that were built for what this season was going to be. Does it feel like that you're not as concerned anymore about a team taking the Cardinals out of this wild card race, T-Bone?
I don't think that's crazy to say. And now, I'm a little bit higher than most people. Like when Derek said yesterday on the show.
Clip that off. He's a little bit higher than most people.
Yeah, man.
Sorry, that's a BK comment.
When Derek said yesterday, like, maybe this is the series where the national perspective changes and they're favored in series, if people listen to the Rebel Report or hear me talk on this show,
nice.
You know, a lot of times I say on this show in the Rebel Report, I'm taking them 2 out of 3 in this series. I'm taking them 2 out of 3 in this series. Yeah. And I'm not saying that because we're in St. Louis. You know, I'm one that has said before, hey, that's a 90-loss team, or this team's not very good. I truly believe they're favored in most of the series that they have played in because they are playing so well from an offensive perspective, and then they've got the pitching that has been maybe the biggest surprise of the season for how good that the rotation has been. I just look across the National League, and, yeah, I think there's a chance like Philly could potentially leapfrog them and move into that number 1 wild card spot. And I'd hear the argument on Arizona, but Arizona's pitching I just don't trust.
Yeah.
But then I look at the teams on the outside to what you're talking about here of, is there somebody that will leapfrog them to knock them out? Does anybody really trust San Diego? I mean, they can't hit.
Yeah.
You know, Washington, like, they're fun. Their offense is fun. They've got Michaelis pitching. Like, come on.
Not for long, I would hope.
Well, I wouldn't think so either. Pittsburgh would be the one that I would look at and say, okay, you know I've been higher on Pittsburgh. They're hanging around. They've got an offense. I think they're one of, what was it I said in the office, 5 teams in Major League Baseball that have 4 guys with 200 plate appearances that have a 750 OPS or better.
Yeah, Connor Griffin's coming back.
Exactly. And they've got the pitching as well with Paul Skeens, Mitch Keller. They've got some good arms there. Pittsburgh is the one team that I would circle here. I don't trust the Cubs. I don't trust the Reds, and Miami and everybody else I don't trust. But the thing with Pittsburgh is I saw the Cardinals sweep them. Mm-hmm. So I already think the Cardinals are better than the Pittsburgh Pirates. So I don't see who the team is right now that's going to leapfrog to kick them out of the playoffs. I could see Philly and Arizona doing that and leapfrogging them, but that doesn't kick them out the way that the standings are currently situated. And I think Fangraphs is feeling the same way. I mean, you look at their playoff odds, they have quietly crept up to a 47% chance to make the playoffs, according to Fangraphs. That's the 5th best odds in the National League.
Well, and the other thing with this, too, is June gets even more of an opportunity to pad the lead. Like, you play the Diamondbacks in June and July. You play the San Diego Padres in June. Like, you're going to see the Pirates again. To me, I think the only teams that I'd be worried about would be Pittsburgh and Chicago. And I understand Chicago, and I'm not all bought in on them at all, but I do know they're dealing with injuries. And when do they get healthy, and do they get healthy in enough time to kind of pull themselves back into this? Do they keep themselves in the race and then get healthy towards the end? That's the part that I would be concerned about. But no, the Padres offense can't do anything for you. So you rely on your pitching to be perfect, which is a dangerous game to play. The Nationals, as fun as this is right now, I do think that falls off a cliff at some point. And then the Reds, you've already seen that. They've pushed the Reds to the side. The Marlins, I'm not worried about. So to me, it comes down to Pittsburgh. And I think Pittsburgh's pitching has the ability to keep them in this race. It's why the month of July is so critical for the Cardinals, because I think July is going to be very difficult for them with Atlanta, with Milwaukee, with the Cubs, with Atlanta again, the Diamondbacks. But with that being said, go ahead and look at some of those other teams that are playing in the month of July, because it's not all rosy for Pittsburgh.
And because of what you said with their schedule in July is why I think June's so critical for them.
You could pad that lead.
Let's not worry about July till we see June, and June is when they've got to add that cushion there, right?
Yeah.
Because like at this series against the Mets, I think we agreed that, hey, they should take 2 or 3 from the Mets. Then they go to Minnesota. They're going to be favored in that series. They should take 2 or 3 from Minnesota. San Diego, that's more of a toss-up 50-50, but you're at home, right? I'm gonna kind of lean your direction there because you're at home for that series. Sure. Royals, big case not here, but he would agree with this. They suck.
Yeah, no, they're bad.
So you should take 2 or 3 from Kansas City. Then Arizona comes for 4. That's the one that will be very tough.
That's going to be the critical one.
But again, you get that series at home here. So in theory, that should help you out. And then the Marlins, you would be favored against them. I mean, I just read off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of their next series here in June, and I just said they should be favored in 4 of the 5. Mm-hmm. And I think they should have minimum earn a split with Arizona. That's how you build some cushion here for this race in the wild card picture.
I'm with you as well when it comes to the Pirates and specifically the starting pitching. But as we saw last night, guys, against Los Angeles, no less, that bullpen is highly combustible. Now, does this team possess the offensive pieces to really inflict some damage? Yeah, the run differential alone will tell you that at plus 21. And I'm still willing to play. Here on June the 10th, I'm willing to play the on-paper game as it relates to the Cubs. I'm not going to sleep on that team down the stretch. But beyond Chicago, to me, there is such a clear line of demarcation. When you get below the Cubs and you get into the ranks of Cincinnati, New York, Washington even, etc., because I'm still not willing to go all in on the Nats when you have two offensive standouts, and that's pretty much it. There's a ton of bad baseball out there once you get below the lower rung teams in the Central.
Yeah, you put yourself in a great position right now. If you keep doing what you're doing in the month of June where you can win series, I think you push the Reds out of this completely. You push the Marlins out of this completely. And there's a chance you create some real distance between you and the Cubs and the Nationals and the Padres. And then it comes down to the Pirates continue to find ways to win, which I'm just not too sold on with the matchups that they have in this National League, specifically divisions that they're going to be playing against. Real quick, before we get to Curbs on the other side, if you look around the National League, are we going to start seeing some of these winning windows close? Like the Mets, it's ugly right now. I think the Cincinnati Reds had that winning window, and I don't know if it's closed, but boy, it's not staying open very long for kind of the conversations that are surrounding them. The Cubs always spend, but how much do you buy into that? The Padres, maybe the Phillies, if you consider that. Like, how many of these windows do you think are starting to close, which could open things up for the Cardinals in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think the Giants are another one that had to be thrown in here because I felt like how aggressive they were going to have a window.
I think that closed once they spent money in free agency.
Closed before it ever opened.
Yep, amen to that.
Same with the Mets. Now, the Mets, you could argue, will always have a window because they've got Soto, but they're quietly getting older around him, right? Lindor's slowly starting to get up there in age.
And they've changed the identity. You can't just change back to the old identity.
So the Mets, I lean towards that window is closed, but I think they can reopen theirs with their money that they have available to them with Steve Cohen's pockets. Reds closed before it ever opened. The Cubs are one that I don't really know what to do with because of what you said, the injuries. I think their window is still open. Brewers somehow still open. San Diego's, I think, is close. And I think that's the biggest development for the Cardinals. Yeah. I think that one's done. Machado's clearly on the end of his career. I don't know what to make of Tatis, and I don't know what to make of Merrill's struggles. The hope for them is that they can get both those guys going. We'll see if ownership, they just sold the team. We'll see if the new ownership group is willing to put more money into the product for them. Yeah. But they've cleaned house in their farm system because Preller's been so aggressive. They've got no real starting rotation that I look at and go, okay, well, at least they've got that to lean on. They've got one arm that I really trust in it.
Just the pin.
Yeah, and we know how bullpens are, right? They're fickle. They can be great one year, be awful the next with the same guys in there. So I think the Padres' window's closed, and I think that's the thing that really makes an interesting development in the National League.
I think it's great for the Cardinals if that's the case, because then you can start to look at it and see the path moving forward. Hey, join BK on 101 ESPN this Thursday, tomorrow, from 3 to 5 at the Paymore in Maplewood. New to the St. Louis area, Paymore is a great way to sell, recycle, and buy electronics. And this Thursday, you can get 20% off all in-store purchases. Plus, get entered to win a brand new PS5. Paymore open with 2 locations in Baldwin and Maplewood, and you could check out the Maplewood location on Thursday, tomorrow, from 3 to 5 at 3212 Laclede Station Road with BK and 101 ESPN. Get all the details at 101ESPN.com. Chris Kerber's next here on 101 ESPN.
The Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
Hey, we're heading into the hottest week of the year so far, maybe the hottest weekend as well. So maybe it's the first time, because you're one that likes to have the windows open, that you've turned that air conditioner on. Maybe it's the first time you've let it go for a few days and it's starting to make some sounds. Maybe it's not blowing right. Get online at classicaircare.com or call the folks up at Classic Air Care. Have them come out, check it out. Make sure they do a maintenance check. That's going to be the best way for you to avoid major breakdowns and catastrophic breakdowns in the middle of the summer when the heat is really bad. It's really that simple. That's what they're there for. They got a 4.8 Google rating for a reason. They're there for you when something comes up. Maybe it's making just a sound. Give them a call, describe it to them, and say, is this something you guys should come out for? Customer service is their number one priority. That's why I love them. That's why I use them. And that's why I rely on them to keep my home comfortable. They're there for you as well. Check out all their great reviews at the top of their website at classicaircare.com. Get them out to the house. And if something's going wrong with your air conditioner this summer, keep Classic Air Care in mind. You can count on them. It's Classic Air Care. They've been making people comfortable since 1926.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Hello, with Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN as we now head to the Collier and Thompson hotline to head out to the beautiful state of Iowa, where Chris Kerber is going to join us today. Kerbs, how's Iowa, my friend?
Dude, we made it up here. We've got the AFA Phillies, the Ruffians team, the 2010s, playing in the President's Cup second round. So they're one step away from making the national tournament. So we'll hope they have a good week. And touring Iowa State here in a few minutes with a couple of, what do we call them, rising juniors? Is that how we say it these days? So
rising juniors.
Yeah, doing some sports, doing some college touring, and they're going to have a great weekend all surrounded. So tell you what, I've never been up to Iowa State before. I've toured, University of Iowa. That was great. This is a really nice campus up here.
Oh, yeah. Fun atmosphere, too, especially during college football season for what you see on the television. Kerbs, I'm curious, if we're going to a playoff soccer match, are we going tarps off at some point today?
Not this body. Not this body.
Oh, come on. You've worked on that body. You've sculpted it, Kerbs.
Yeah, listen, I have been working on it, but I do believe that even though that is a fantastic trend, I think that should stay with a certain generation that has a lot less body fat, or Tanner. And then, and then it should also be one of those things where I think if I did that at this tournament, I might end up in jail. So we're going to avoid that.
That's smart.
And not go tarps off and leave that to the younger folks. But I'm curious. It'll be fun to see how this tournament is run and how it goes, for the girls. So it'll be a fun weekend, I hope.
Looking forward to hearing how it went, Kerbs. So on the hockey side of things, Kerbs, I have flip-flopped on this conversation probably 3 times over the last week, which shouldn't surprise anybody. But, we just had a prospect analyst on to talk a little bit about the combine that just took place. And, he had told us that, Ivar Stenberg, without even doing any of the combine workouts because he was sick, still is viewed amongst a lot of people in the National Hockey League as a potential superstar player. I think I've come back to the conversation of, man, it feels like the Blues should really do as much as they can to acquire the ability to draft Ivar Stenberg, which is easier said than done. But, Kerbs, the one thing we've talked so much about is finding a superstar caliber talent, and it seems like Stenberg may have that if the Blues could find a way to get him.
Yeah, or even one of the others, Alex. And but the biggest thing when it comes to something like that is, again, look where the franchise is and look where things are going. And I agree with you. They are in that spot where, this franchise has been starving for that kind of player, right? And it could do a whole lot on the ice and off the ice when it comes to that. The reality of it is, though, and this is why again, since the year-long lockout of 04-05, you've only seen one team move into the top 5 after the season's ended with a trade. And that's because typically the other teams that are there are in that spot. So, if you're looking at the Toronto Maple Leafs, right, and you need defense. You don't necessarily need the forwards, but you need defense. There's defensemen in this draft. Could they move back? Sure. But I don't think they're going to in this case. Then look at the San Jose Sharks. And the San Jose Sharks, are they ready to make a big step forward? I think where teams have made massive mistakes in their building process is honestly the fact that they wait too long to make those steps forward. So, again, this feels like the kind of year with the teams that are in the top 10 that you would expect to see some movements, even though history tells us, and a lot of history tells us, that's kind of rare. But as exciting and, yeah, I think it would be fantastic for the St. Louis Blues. You've got to have a team that's willing to trade out of that. And I can make the cases where a couple of those teams in there should, and I can make the case where it's easy for them not to.
Kerbs, if there is a team that ends up saying, okay, yeah, we're willing to trade out, let's talk, what pieces that the Blues have do you think are just untouchables that no matter what, you're not putting them in that deal to move into the top 10?
Ooh, okay. Untouchables for me. And this is my opinion. This is not having talked to anybody. This is just me saying. To me, the pieces that I'm not trading. I'm not trading anything on that top line of Snuggerud, Thomas, or Holloway. Okay. All right. I am not trading the character and the play of Jake Neighbors. Okay. And at this point in time, I'm not trading Dalibor Dvorsky. He took a 10th overall pick. He's growing. It's going to take some time. And we see that there's plenty of time here, for him to become a terrific player. So from a forward standpoint, I'm kind of looking at those as my quote unquote untouchables. On the defensive side of it, I don't think you're going to, obviously it's going to be Broberg and maybe Lindstein. Now, I believe you got to keep the veteran around, right? So I'm going to put Parayko in that group. I might be just a little personally biased on that one, right? But I'm going to put him in there. Now, I do believe that there's still enough on this roster to make something happen. Because for me, if you're one of those teams, Tanner, that is going to try to trade down and say drop from a top 5 to the 11th overall pick plus players, those are teams that are ready to take the step, and some veteran players can help them make a big step in a big way, just like Ryan O'Reilly did in 19 for the Blues. So to me, there's not a lot, but there are definitely some untouchables in that group.
What about some prospects, too? I mean, I understand what you're saying that, yeah, they may be looking for more NHL help, but they may also target a prospect as well in that kind of trade. Yeah. So what about like a Juracek or a Carbonneau, for example? Are those guys untouchable in your opinion?
I think that would depend on where you're picking. Like if I'm talking top 3, I would at least consider it. Now, the reason, though, that I would say it really just depends on those with those two specifically, is because the way that team people, even within the organization, have used the name Pietrangelo in referring to Juracek for me, says he might be, right? But the flip side with Carbonneau is, look, you might consider it because you're in all likelihood taking a forward. If you were taking a Gavin McKenna, if you were taking an Ivar Stenberg, right? You might consider that because eventually you just don't have enough room for forwards. But I don't know. Like if you let's just say you're San Jose, are you going to trade for a Carbonneau versus drafting a Stenberg? Yeah, I don't know that you do that. Obviously, it's not 1-for-1, but that's why the all-around package here and the direction is where. But that's what also makes it so doggone tough. But look, there's no way. I don't think you're moving into a top 3 unless you're giving up the 11th, maybe the 11th and the 15th, a player off your roster and a prospect. I see that as probably being a 4-piece kind of deal.
I agreed with that one. We got a couple more minutes.
I think it'd be worth it.
Yeah, it comes down to what's a part of that, because for me, Curbs, like the Juracek one is just, I feel like it's a hard no, because it doesn't feel like you're bettering your team if you're trading a guy that's supposed to be a centerpiece of your defense moving forward to get a forward, which is something you absolutely need, but then you're going to be looking for that next defenseman, and you wonder if that becomes a glaring hole for you.
Well, listen, and go back to it. Like the moment you're trading a 6'6" experienced defenseman at 31 years of age is the day you're looking for a 6'6" defenseman with experience. Okay, so
right.
I mean, it's, and I know it sounds basic, but that's the truth. And to your point, Alex, kind of, you're absolutely right. The one thing you have to protect, in my book, is if you think you've got a really good young defenseman or a defensive prospect, I think you have to protect them, right? Because finding them is harder than it is going out to find a forward. You know, you can see a guy like Dylan Larkin says, I want to be traded, right? That kind of, like, you can go find forwards that can help make a difference. You know, look, if you look at these two teams that are playing in the Stanley Cup final now and go look at the list of how many of these players were acquired by a trade, you know, it tells you can find things. So where teams can get into trouble, in my opinion, is one, they overvalue their prospects for far too long. Cardinals are a great example of a team that did that in pro sports recently, right? And there are ones then that don't value the right ones the right way, and you let guys go. So it really comes down to evaluation. And the one thing I've got a lot of faith in with the St. Louis Blues, you know, is their scouting, their drafting ability, and their evaluation. Because, you know, look, those two offer sheets prevented you from getting having two really bad years and getting two, you know, one top 10 pick and then a 14th pick. Like, you're knocking on the door. So again, I'll summarize it by just saying, man, if there was ever a year that I felt like there's enough teams out there, or even the Blues, that have all the makings of what it would take to make that kind of a deal, this is the year for it.
Yep. Final one for you, Curbs, because I want to let you go so you can get back to that tour of the campus. But I did want to ask you about Steve Ott and the contract extension announcement that was earlier today. You know, we discussed it earlier. It's been so long since the Blues have had that type of symmetry with their minor league system, and I think it's a massive win for the Blues to keep Steve Ott around for at least another year and maybe two.
Yeah, then listen, this was just a good fit. I think it was really clear with the way that this season was going that changes in the coaching staff were going to happen. I think moving Steve Ott down to Springfield, one, protected him from those changes on one side of it. And then the second part of it was the one thing when he was going to do the interviews with people, and he had interviewed for some NHL jobs, but the one thing he was doing, he couldn't talk about, well, my experience as a head coach. So he goes down there, he has some great early success, 4 games over 500 in the final 32 games, and then a terrific playoff run. This is going to give him a chance to settle in, to plan for a season, to plan for his own camp, to still be obviously part of the Blues big camp when it opens up, things like that. You know, look, the Blues have had a pretty solid minor league system for a while. Drew Bannister took them to the Calder Cup finals, right? You know, Connor Walchuk, you know, it did a solid job that first year for this team. It's a good opportunity for Steve Ott, and is probably the most important step for Steve to be able to become an NHL head coach. You know, and look, we're all fans of him since the trade from Buffalo to St. Louis and what he's done, what he's meant to the city and all that. And I think it's really cool that because it is Steve Ott, there's a renewed interest in people kind of tracking what's going on down there because of him. And that's a positive for the organization too. I think it's an excellent step for the Blues. Steve earned that opportunity, and I think he clearly earned that extension and a chance to do more with them down there.
2 weeks away from the NHL draft. Plenty more conversations in the next couple of weeks with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. Kerbs, enjoy the tour, enjoy the tournament, and we'll talk next Wednesday.
Okay, guys. Have an awesome week. Talk to you next week.
There you go. Voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, with us on the Collier and Thompson hotline.
I'll tell you right now, the more he tells me I don't belong in tarps off, the more likely I'm going to take my shirt off.
You better hope that this team chases down the Milwaukee Brewers, because we're going to see it.
I mean, if he keeps tempting me, it may come off before the NL Central crown.
This is, reverse psychology works on everyone, Bradford. Don't let him tell you otherwise.
Okay. He's like my dad. The more he tells me I'm not going to do something, the more likely I am.
And Defiant. Now I realize as a parent, man, that actually works, because when I try and get my kids to do something, I'm like, fine, don't eat your dinner. And they're like, oh, okay, well, I might eat it. It works on everyone, Bradford. Tanner Henderickson, maybe tarps off T-Bone. Bradford Brunsum, Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll hit the rewind. But coming up next, you send us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which one's more likely to happen next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Report. Your front row seat to all things Cardinals. From the dugout to the diamond, BK and T-Bone go deep with the latest news, notes, and analysis. Watch the Redbird Report on YouTube or listen online at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Redbirds show no mercy versus Mets. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Universal Windows Direct. Tuesday night at Citi Field, the Cardinals grabbed a series opening victory over New York in emphatic fashion. St. Louis 7, Mets nothing. Dustin May throwing 6 spotless innings, while Nathan Church's first game since May 20th yielded 3 hits. Roughly 5 hours from now, STL will start Andre Palante against fellow righty Austin Warren. Currently, AL East leading Tampa Bay paces Boston for zip. Yankees and Guardians remain tied 3-3. Next hour, Washington visiting San Francisco. Reds, Padres, rubber match action also on deck. This SportsCenter update was presented by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. What's more likely to happen? They'll figure it out. BK and Ferrario's most likely to happen.
314-399-9646. That is our Air Comfort Service text line. Also our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. The Graveyard Chat is where you could join in for more likely to happen. You send us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you if which one is more likely to happen. I'll start. More likely to happen, fellas. The 4th line will be Toropchenko, Walker, and Finley for the bulk of next season. Or, more likely, Dylan Dubé is your center on the team for the large portion of the season next year.
Spicy.
So 4th line remains the main one for the portion of the season, or Dylan Dubé remains a center for the Blues.
Anywhere
for the
on the roster?
Anywhere on the roster.
I'll say Dubé, and the reason I say that, JR had in his mailbag today that he released on The Athletic that he was hearing from sources that there's a chance he gets a contract with the St. Louis Blues.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see where they sign him. He wins 3rd line, 2nd line center job, maybe 4th. That could happen too. And he remains on the roster for the vast majority of the year, because it's not like this is a guy that hadn't played at the NHL level. I mean, he had success.
20 goals for the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, so he had success. So I would say that, because I think that 4th line could still be a rotating door going into next year.
I will go with that slight infusion of new blood in the form of Dubé. I do think there are many more areas that you could stand to upgrade or tinker with as opposed to the 4th line, that configuration with Nathan Walker. I do wonder, though, for how many games are you going to see that listed trio in that particular spot? So, yeah, let's go Dubé, actually.
I don't think it's going to be consistent for that 4th line. I think there's going to be a lot more internal competition for that. Dean, Peterson, Kaskamaki, maybe a Dylan Dubé. Heck, an Otto Stenberg could be playing on that, depending on if everybody returns next season. I'll say it's Dubé, and I think Kiki is that 3rd line center, and I think there's a chance Pius Suter is that winger for you if he's on this team. T-Bone?
Guys, which home team is more likely to win their championship series? The Carolina Hurricanes or the San Antonio Spurs?
I'll say Hurricanes. I think the Hurricanes have shown the ability to just not go away. That was the first home playoff game in the NBA Finals for the Knicks in a long time. There's a lot of pressure. Like, it's different from being in the playoffs versus the NBA Final where you went 2-0 on the road. I'll say it's the Hurricanes. I think the Knicks I think the Spurs have a good chance. I just think the Knicks might be the better team. I believe the Hurricanes have shown the ability to stay in the game. If they can get Frederick Anderson back in the right space, and we'll see if he gets the start in Game 5, I think the Hurricanes still win this 1-6.
Yeah, I concur when it comes to Carolina. Alex, I should have taken your advice yesterday. Having said that, I wanted to see, the way in which Carolina was able to respond to the adversity, to having lost for once in an overtime session, coming through with the flying colors. I just like this team's ability to extend it and ultimately maybe take it in 6 or 7.
Yeah,
Number 2.
I'm sticking with what my gut had said originally, and now I've lost a little bit of faith in this, but I'm going to say it's the Spurs. I think I said at the beginning Spurs in 6. I said at the beginning Golden Knights in 6.
Yeah.
And I still am believing in the Golden Knights in 6 games. I've lost a little faith in the Spurs just because De'Aaron Fox hasn't played extremely well, but I think they're still going to be the team. They've got the better superstar, in my opinion, than Wembanyama. So I'm going to say San Antonio is the one that is more likely to win as the home team.
Bradford?
Let's spin it forward with the hoops just a little bit. Of course, last night, guys, we had that scintillating chapter in the Stanley Cup final. And tonight on 101 ESPN, 7:30, your tip time for game number 4, Knicks and Spurs. More likely, though, to happen, New York returns to this stage, this very stage, next year, or San Antonio gets back to this point 1 year from now.
I'll say San Antonio gets back to this point.
I'll go Knicks. I mean, I think the East is weaker. I mean, in the West, you've got the Thunder.
Bingo.
And now I don't know if he'll get there, but Anthony Edwards is in the West. I think the West is just deeper than the Eastern Conference. Cleveland, by the way, another one to keep an eye on in the East. But I think it's a lot easier a path for New York out of the Eastern Conference. For San Antonio, they're probably going to have to go through OKC again, who's only going to try and get better this offseason. So I'll say it's more likely that it would be the Knicks.
Yeah, I'm not just being a prisoner of the moment here. I fully believe that New York has the better opportunity next season because I'm not buying stock in Detroit until I see something in the playoffs beyond round 2. Certainly not in Cleveland. Boston, okay, will be back, and will be back in a strong manner. But when you pit, guys, the Eastern Conference against the Western Conference altogether, guys like Castle, Wemby, etc. for San Antonio, just scratching the surface, whereas giving me another year of Brunson, he's 29, Towns, he's 30, in their respective primes, I'm not saying that the window is just opening, but New York's odds, better than you may think.
Let's get to some of these on the Air Comfort Service text line. More likely to happen, Jordan Walker goes 40-20 or 30-30? 40 home runs, 20 stolen bases, 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases.
Ooh, I'd say more likely 40-20. I don't know if he's going to steal 30 bags. He's on pace for over 40 home, or he was on pace. I don't know if that changed after last night. I would doubt it. He's got the 40 home run power. I don't know that he's going to steal 30 bases, so I say more likely 40-20.
Mid-20s maybe, but Jordan Walker would become the 25th player in Major League history to go 40-20.
More likely to happen, Alex decides to flip-flop on whether the Blues should stand or trade up in the draft 2 more times.
Right, that one.
Or the Blues actually make a deal to move up.
He flipped.
I'm not flipping anymore.
They're not.
I'm not flipping.
Whatever.
I'm not flipping.
Yeah,
How many times have you flipped within the course of the show today?
I'm not a flip-flopper.
And that's okay.
When you listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast, which is up on our YouTube channel, just disregard what I said about the number 2 overall pick.
It's only 144.
I changed my mind 2 hours later.
I've said this, and I stand by it. And Kerb's even made reference to it. I mean, it's been so long since someone's traded in the top 10. I think the odds are there's all this smoke because, these teams are listening on it. They're also holding these picks at extremely high value that teams are just going to balk away from it.
The hard part for me is, and I look at the scenarios of where you realistically would try and trade up because it's really only 2, 4, and 5. I don't think you're trading up beyond 5 unless you go for a guy that's somebody you really want. San Jose isn't really looking to get a player that is in the development stage. I think they want help now because they believe they can start winning. The Blackhawks need guys that can help them now. And the Rangers just need bulk. Like the Rangers, if they're going into a rebuild, they just need as many opportunities as possible. Those are the realistic odds. I understand, though, it's very hard to do, so I'll say it's more likely that I flip-flop at least 2 more times in this one. More likely to... where's this at? More likely to happen, Victor Scott works his way back to a starting job in Major League Baseball, or he remains a minor leaguer for his entire career.
I hope it's the first one.
I do too, but I think in the Cardinals' mind, it's more real. I think it might be more likely he's just a minor league center fielder.
Major League Baseball, though, right? We're talking about getting back to the
Major League Baseball.
I think there's still a path. Like if Church doesn't end up hitting, there'll be a path for Scott to be back there. I won't write off his tenure here just yet. But I would say my gut tells me right now it's more likely minor leaguer because the guy he reminds me of is Michael Ciani, and now he didn't have a successful big league career, but Magneuris Sierra.
Yeah,
I just don't see the hit tool that everybody tells me he's got. I just don't see it at the major league level. I think he's a defense first / pinch runner outfielder, and that's how you get to Sierra / Ciani role.
I'd like to go with the former, but Tanner, we're seeing this, I feel more and more, maybe not along the lines of relievers per se, but if you have that one tool, and the one tool is clearly the speed, and yet you can't consistently get on base whatsoever, and you're an outfielder, These guys are very quickly leaving and evaporating from the major league stage. We saw it a couple of years ago, guys from the A's. We seem to see that on a rotating basis year in and year out. So I'd like to say the former.
Final one here. More likely to happen. J.J. Weatherholt hits 30 home runs this season, or Jimmy Snuggerud scores 30 goals next year? I'd say it's Snuggerud.
I would too.
Weatherholt's not getting to 30 home runs.
Yeah,
maybe next year, if more power happens, he's not getting to 30 next year.
Yeah,
or this year.
I think it's Snuggerud. I don't know that JJ's got the 30 home run power yet. He might develop into that as he kind of matures and grows into his body. I don't think he's there yet, though. Snuggerud, I could definitely see, especially if what you saw in the second half from that top line was real. He'll be a 30-goal scorer next year.
We were debating yesterday whether JJ could get to 20 in year number 1. What if I revised that and said JJ 30 or Snuggerud 40?
I'd say Snuggerud 40.
Hey!
I just think playing with Thomas and the opportunity is going to be there. I just don't know if Weatherholt's got the 30 home run power.
Same.
I think if you said JJ 20 or Snuggerud 30, then I'd probably say JJ. But I think Snuggerud's going to score 30 next year, which how many times have I said something that gets you excited about the Blues and it doesn't pan out?
You're not flip-flopping on that.
Not on that one. Next Friday morning, June 19th, TMA all along. You're right. I'll flip to 40 next year. Along with our radio friends from all 5 Hubbard stations are set to team up to fill a truck for Operation Food Search. Support from Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken and the Happy Roof Company. Stop by the station next Friday morning because TMA will be heading downstairs to broadcast live out front in the parking lot from 7 to 11. Collecting canned goods and non-perishable food items. We'll be handing out donuts from Donut Drive-In while supplies last, and everyone who stops by will have a chance to enter to win a $500 grand prize. Now is a critical time to support as summer see a big drop in food donations. So get your donations ready. Bring them by next Friday morning, 7 to 11 with TMA and 101 ESPN out in front of Hubbard St. Louis, 11647 Olive Boulevard in Creve Coeur. We'll rewind it next here on 101 ESPN.
The NBA Finals are on ESPN tonight. Spurs and Knicks. Pregame at 6:30. Tip-off at 7:30. Your home for the NBA is 101 ESPN. Auto Centers. They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
T-Bone sent us down a rabbit hole. How do you pronounce Paraguay?
I think that way.
Because I swear I pronounced it Paraguay all Spanish class, which was 3 years in high school.
Paraguay.
Okay, so we've just pronounced it 3 different ways. Paraguay,
Either way,
Paraguay.
you know what's going to happen to that country on Friday? They're going to lose to the U.S. as the World Cup kicks off.
USA! We going to go tarps off for World Cup action?
I'm not even going to see when the game's being played. It's at like 8 o'clock at night.
I'm out
You're
there.
not going to come to my house?
You're going to be cotting at 8 o'clock at night?
Well, no, because I'm going to watch the game, but
tarps off at T-Bones.
I don't see you coming to my house, let alone coming to my house with your shirt off.
Tarps off at T-Bones. I think it's going to be a great video series throughout the World Cup. With Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. We rewind it today here on BK and Ferrario. If you missed anything from the show, make sure you check it out on the podcasts after the show today. It's a really great show, I thought, because we had some fun interviews. We talked with Steve Ott, who got his 2-year contract extension to remain the head coach for the Springfield Thunderbirds. We chatted with Anthony Donati, or the Prospect Don, fresh off of the scouting combine, who has made me flip-flopped on my decision with the Blues draft this upcoming June. And we talked hockey with Chris Kerber, plus plenty of Cardinals conversation. Bradford and T-Bone do a great job of isolating it so you can scroll through and find what you want to listen to over on our YouTube channel, 101ESPN.com. And, of course, our podcast sponsored by the Schaefer Door Company. You can also check it out on the 101 ESPN app, sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Plus, you can see the newest episode of the Last Minute Blues podcast. We talk about Steve Ott. We talk about Dylan Dubé, maybe a couple of others pushing for a fourth-line job for this Blues team. And, yes, I had a different opinion on the second overall pick, which probably isn't a moot point at this time. So make sure you go check that out, and they'll have a Redbird report later this week as well. But as we rewind it today, guys, let's go back to the beginning. Cardinals with the 7-0 victory last night against the Mets. Tonight it sounds like they're getting a bullpen game against the New York Mets. A right-hander's getting the start, so I would imagine you're going to see a similar lineup. But the biggest thing from that game last night for me, guys, was Dustin May's performance. His pitching has been sensational since those first 2 blunders that he had at the beginning of the season. And, man, more than anything, it has now provided me confidence that the Cardinals staff know how to identify talent, which has been such a massive issue for this Cardinals team for the longest time.
Yeah, May's been awesome, as you said, since those first 2 starts. Since then, 11 starts, 8 of them quality starts, and he has a 2.9 ERA. I mean, they were able to identify the talent in free agency, as you said. They were able to pick up a rebound candidate and get him back to the guy that he was pre-injuries with the LA Dodgers. And he's pitching like a number 1 right now on a staff. So he's been impressive. And the other thing for me was Alec Burleson. I mean, Burly just continues to improve upon what already was an impressive year last year. He's just continued to build on it. He's one of the top 15 hitters in Major League Baseball against right-handed pitching this season. He's been on a tear since the middle of May, and we talked about what it means for the Cardinals in the future. Is he a guy that is in the conversation of the core when they're back winning again? My opinion, I think he is. I think he's a guy that you kind of go through the arbitration process with, and if he's continuing to hit, you then sign him to a contract extension and keep him around.
10-hit attack altogether last night. In addition to Burly, you had Nathan Church returning in triumphant fashion. 3 hits, reaching base left and right, makes that circus catch in center field in the double leadoff spot in the order as well. Tanner, paid that one off for you. We'll see what happens as far as maybe changing the complexion of the bottom portion of the order. 1 game, yes, but again, we've talked ad nauseum here, guys, about what a Nathan Church, the version of Nathan Church that we saw for that matter in April, power-wise could do for you. Right now in the 9th spot, what can he do for an encore tonight?
Palante on the mound this evening. What do you think happens?
I think they win. I think the bullpen game, you're going to find somebody that they can get to. Palante's been very good this year. That offense for the Mets, as you saw last night, not very good. So I think they win tonight. I'll say another big game from Alec Burleson. I'll say he goes deep again.
All right.
6-2 this evening. Keep that ball down. Simply don't work to Juan Soto or maybe even Carson Bench. You're good.
I like it. Bradford Bruns, appreciate his.
Loss? Why'd you not? Why'd you not say anything about it?
Cardinals win 9-0.
Wow, 9. Whoa.
That's not going to happen. Bradford, appreciate his help this week. BK is going to be back with us tomorrow for Tanner Henderickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Have a great rest of your day. Fast Lane coming up next from 2 to 6. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 11 here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's BK. Join me and 101 ESPN on Thursday from 3 to 5 o'clock at Paymore in Maplewood. They're new to the St. Louis area, and Paymore is a great way for you to sell, recycle, or buy electronics. Plus, you can enter to win a brand new PS5. Paymore is now open. They've got 2 locations, one in Baldwin, another in Maplewood, and that's where you can find me from 3 to 5 o'clock on Thursday. They're located at 3212 Laclede Station Road. That's Thursday from 3 to 5.